Deep within the emerald heart of Veracruz, where the mist clings to the ancient trees like a spectral shroud, lie secrets carved in stone. Here, veiled by the jungle's embrace, colossal heads of basalt emerge from the damp earth, their features weathered by time, their expressions locked in an eternal, silent gaze. These are the stone faces of forgotten kings, the enigmatic remnants of a civilization that bloomed and vanished long before the rise of the Maya or the Aztecs. Welcome to the world of the Olmec. For centuries, these monumental sculptures were just local legends, whispered tales of giants sleeping beneath the soil. It wasn't until the 19th century that the world began to awaken to their existence, unearthing a puzzle that continues to mystify archaeologists and historians to this day. Who were these people? The Olmec, who possessed the skill and the will to quarry multi-ton volcanic boulders, transport them over 60 miles of treacherous terrain, and then carve them with such astonishing realism and power. They are known as the Cultura Madre, the mother culture of Mesoamerica, a civilization that laid the very foundations for all the great empires that would follow. From their heartland along the Gulf Coast of Mexico, their influence spread like the roots of a great ceiba tree, embedding itself in the art, religion, and social structures of countless subsequent cultures. They introduced the first writing system in the Americas, developed a sophisticated calendar, and mastered the art of working with jade, a stone they valued more than gold. Yet, for all their groundbreaking achievements, the Olmec themselves remain shrouded in profound mystery. This journey will take us back more than 3,000 years, to a time of powerful rulers, shamanistic rituals, and a deep connection to the natural and supernatural worlds. We will explore their major centers. San Lorenzo, a sprawling early capital built on a massive artificial plateau. Venta, a sacred ceremonial complex, aligned with the stars, and Tres Zapotes, one of the final bastions of their fading culture. Each site offers a unique window into their society, revealing a complex web of trade, warfare, and belief. The colossal heads are, without a doubt, their most iconic legacy. Each one is a distinct individual, a portrait of a powerful ruler. Look closely at the subtle details. The downturned mouth, often interpreted as a jaguar mouth, a symbol of divine power and transformation. The intricate headgear, a sort of protective helmet that some believe was used in the sacred Mesoamerican bowl. The powerful, almost stoic expressions that seem to carry the weight of an entire kingdom. Carving these was a monumental undertaking, an act of political and religious devotion that cemented a ruler's authority and legacy in indestructible stone. But why did they carve them? And more pressingly, why were so many of them intentionally buried, ritually killed and laid to rest in elaborate ceremonies? Was it an act of reverence upon a ruler's death, or a symbolic overthrow of a fallen dynasty? Beyond these stone visages, the Olmec world was populated by a menagerie of sacred beings. Their art is a fusion of the human and the animal, a universe of jaguars, feathered serpents, and beings that straddled the line between the physical and the spiritual. These weren't just decorative motifs. They were portals to understanding the Olmec cosmos. The jaguar, the most powerful predator in their world, represented earthly might and shamanic power, the ability to cross between the worlds of the living, the dead, and the divine. We see this obsession in everything from small, exquisitely carved jade celts to massive stone altars, often depicted as thrones from which a ruler emerges from the mouth of a supernatural cave, the underworld itself. Their society was highly stratified, with an elite class of rulers and priests who commanded the labor of a vast population of farmers and artisans. They harnessed the fertile floodplains of the region, cultivating maize, beans, and squash, which formed the bedrock of their civilization. This agricultural surplus allowed them to support the specialists who created their incredible art and architecture. They established extensive trade networks that stretched for hundreds of miles, bringing in precious materials like jade from Guatemala, obsidian from the Mexican highlands, and magnetite for polished mirrors that were believed to hold divinatory powers. The Olmec were not isolated. They were the center of a vibrant, interconnected world. Yet around 400 BC, this vibrant world began to fade. The great centers of Venta and San Lorenzo were abandoned, their monuments defaced and buried, the population dispersed, and the distinct Olmec style that had dominated Mesoamerica for nearly a millennium vanished. What happened? Was it environmental change, a prolonged drought, or the shifting of a river that crippled their agriculture? Was it internal strife, a series of rebellions that shattered the ruling class, or was it external pressure? The rise of new competing centers that eclipsed the old heartland. The evidence is scarce, the answers elusive, leaving us with one of history's great unsolved mysteries. The mother culture simply disappeared, leaving behind only her stone-faced children to bear silent witness to her former glory. In T-Series, we will peel back the layers of jungle and time to uncover the story of the Olmecs. We will walk among their pyramids, decipher the symbols on their celts, and stare into the eyes of their stone kings, trying to understand the people behind the legend. This is not just a story of archaeology. It is a story of human ingenuity, of power, of faith, and of the enduring mystery of what it means for a great civilization to rise, flourish, and ultimately be reclaimed by the earth. Join us as we venture into the mists of the past and come face to face with the first kings of ancient Mexico. Thank you so much for joining us on this first step of our journey. If you are as fascinated by the mysteries of the ancient world as we are, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What aspect of the Olmec civilization intrigues you the most? We look forward to seeing you next time. Welcome, bike history explorers. Today, we journey south, deep into the heartland of Mesoamerica, to a place where the air is thick with humidity and the land is forever green. This is Chapter 2. The Land of Rivers and Rain. We're venturing into the lush, tropical lowlands of southern Veracruz and Tabasco, the cradle of one of the most mysterious and foundational civilizations of the ancient Americas. Imagine a world carved by water. Here, mighty rivers like the Coatzacoalcos and Grijalva snake their way across the landscape, their annual floods depositing layers of incredibly rich, alluvial soil. This wasn't just mud, it was the stuff of life. This fertile ground, combined with a climate that brings generous, life-giving rain, created a natural paradise, an immense garden just waiting for human hands to cultivate it. It was in this humid embrace that the seeds of civilization were sown, literally and figuratively. The people who first settled this region learned to work with the rhythm of the rivers and the rain. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. The soil was so generous that it yielded bountiful harvests, not juste once, but multiple times a year. This agricultural abundance was the engine of their society. They mastered the cultivation of a trio of crops that would become the backbone of Mesoamerican diet and culture: maize, beans, and squash. But they didn't stop there. In the shaded understory of the jungle, they cultivated another treasure, a bean so valuable it would one day be used as currency: cacao. Yes, the very source of chocolate. Its rich, bitter flavor was a taste of the gods, a luxury reserved for the elite and used in sacred ceremonies. This agricultural surplus was the key. For the first time, not everyone had to be a farmer. People could specialize. They could become artisans, priests, builders, and rulers. Society grew more complex, more stratified, and the stage was set for something monumental. From this fertile crescent of the Americas, the first true cities began to rise from the jungle floor. We're talking about centers like San Lorenzo, Venta, and Tres Zapotes, names that echo with ancient power. These weren't just villages. They were sprawling urban complexes with monumental architecture, intricate water management systems, and a population of thousands. Pictured massive earthen pyramids, meticulously planned plazas, oriented to the stars, and sophisticated drainage systems built from stone, all constructed without the use of metal tools or beasts of burden. This was engineering on an epic scale, a testament to a highly organized and powerful society. These cities were the political and religious hearts of their world, drawing in resources and people from across the region. They were the first metropolitan centers of Mesoamerica, born from the bounty of the land of rivers and rain. And who were the masterminds behind these incredible achievements? We call them the Olmec. often referred to as the mother culture of Mesoamerica. Their influence was profound and far-reaching. Perhaps their most iconic and enigmatic legacy are the colossal stoneheads. Imagine trekking through the dense jungle and coming face to face with a massive, multi-ton sculpture of a human head, carved from a single boulder of volcanic basalt. These stones were quarried miles away and somehow transported through swamps and rivers to their final resting places. Each face is unique. Each powerful individual features full lips, broad noses, and a stern, commanding gaze. They're widely believed to be portraits of mighty Olmec rulers, immortalized in stone, their authority and power projected across the centuries. The sheer scale and artistry of these heads are staggering, a clear statement of the Olmecs' organizational power and deep reverence for their leaders. They remain one of ancient history's most compelling mysteries. But the Olmecs' influence goes far beyond giant heads. They were innovators who laid the cultural groundwork for all the great civilizations that followed, including the Maya and the Aztecs. They developed a complex iconography and art style, featuring war jaguars and other supernatural beings that represented their cosmology. They likely developed one of the first writing systems in the Americas, using symbols to record events and ideas. They also had a deep understanding of astronomy and developed a sophisticated calendar system to track the seasons for agriculture and religious rituals. This combination of a sacred calendar and a 365-day solar calendar would become a hallmark of later Mesoamerican cultures. Their trade networks were extensive, stretching from the highlands of Mexico to Central America, spreading their goods, ideas, and their distinctive artistic style far and wide. The jade they prized, the rubber they harvested from local trees for bowls used in their sacred games, and their ceramic designs all traveled along these ancient highways, weaving a web of cultural exchange. Life in these early cities was a complex tapestry of farming, religion, and community. The majority of the population would have lived in simpler dwellings on the outskirts, tending to their fields of maize and beans. Their lives were governed by the agricultural cycle and a rich spiritual world. The city center, with its towering pyramids and grand plazas, was the domain of the elite rulers, priests, and skilled artisans. It was here that grand ceremonies took place. Imagine the air filled with the scent of burning copal incense, the rhythmic beat of drums, and the chants of priests atop the pyramids, connecting the human world with the realm of the gods. The central plazas were not just empty spaces. They were theaters for religious and political spectacle, designed to awe the populace and reinforce the power of the ruling class. This division between the sacred center and the agricultural periphery was a model for urban planning that would endure for centuries. However, like all great civilizations, the Olmec heartland eventually faced a decline. Around 400 BCE, their major centers, like Venta, were systematically abandoned. The reasons are still debated by archaeologists. Was it environmental change? Perhaps the rivers shifted their course, or the land became exhausted from intensive farming. Was it internal conflict or social upheaval? Some evidence points to the deliberate defacement and burial of monuments, suggesting a possible rebellion or a ritualistic closing of the site. Or perhaps it was external pressure from rising neighboring groups. Whatever the cause, the great Olmec cities fell silent, and the jungle began to reclaim what had been built. The mother culture faded, with her children the ideas, the art, the calendar. The gods had already spread across Mesoamerica. The legacy of the land of rivers and rain is immeasurable. The agricultural revolution that began here fueled the growth of population and the rise of social complexity. The urban blueprint created by the Olmec, with its ceremonial core and orientation to the cosmos, became the standard for future cities. Their artistic motifs, religious concepts, and systems of writing and timekeeping were adopted and adapted by countless cultures that followed. When you look at the grandeur of the Maya pyramids or the intricate calendar of the Aztecs, you are seeing the echo of the Olmec. They were the pioneers, the ones who first harnessed the incredible fertility of this tropical landscape to build a society of unprecedented scale and sophistication. Their story is a powerful reminder that all great civilizations are built upon a foundation of food, water, and the ingenuity to transform the natural world. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time to the Olmec heartland. It is a story of how a unique environment of rivers and rain gave birth to the first great civilization of Mesoamerica. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more of this incredible history to uncover together. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the annals of history. Today, we're diving deep into a pivotal moment for humanity. The birth of civilization. We're traveling back to roughly 1500 BCE, a time when something truly remarkable was happening across the globe. Small, scattered farming communities, which had defined human existence for thousands of years, were beginning to transform into something much larger, more complex, and infinitely more powerful, organized societies. So, how did this monumental shift happen? How did a collection of farmers become a kingdom? That's the mystery we're unraveling today. Imagine a world dotted with small villages. Life revolves around the seasons, the planting and harvesting of crops. People live in close-knit groups, reliant on each other for survival. For generations, this was the norm. But slowly, things started to change. Agricultural techniques improved. Maybe it was the invention of a better plow, the development of irrigation systems, or the selection of hardier crops. Whatever the specifics, the result was the same. Food surpluses. For the first time, communities weren't just producing enough to get by. They were producing more than they needed. This surplus was the spark that would ignite a revolution. With extra food, not everyone needed to be a farmer anymore. This simple fact changed everything. People could now specialize. Some became skilled artisans, creating pottery, textiles, and tools that were more sophisticated than ever before. Others became traders, taking surplus grain and finished goods to neighboring villages, creating networks of exchange and communication that stretched for miles. This created wealth, but it also created complexity. Someone had to manage the surplus, organize the trade, and settle the disputes that inevitably arose. A new class of people began to emerge. Administrators and leaders. This growing complexity demanded a new level of organization. To manage irrigation systems that served multiple villages, you needed coordination. To protect trade routes from bandits, you needed a unified defense. To store and distribute the community's surplus grain, you needed a central authority. Power began to consolidate in the hands of a few, perhaps a council of elders. A charismatic warrior, or a priestly class, believed to have a direct line to the gods. This was the dawn of governance, the very early stages of what we would come to recognize as a state. And how do we know this was happening? How do archaeologists piece together this story from the silent dust of millennia? One of the most powerful clues is the appearance of something entirely new on the landscape. Monumental architecture. We're not talking about houses or village huts. We're talking about massive structures, buildings on a scale never before seen, constructions that would have required the coordinated labor of hundreds, if not thousands, of people. These weren't built for individual families. They were built for the community, for the gods, or for the rulers. Think about what it takes to build a grand temple or a towering pyramid. You need architects to design it, managers to oversee the project, and a massive workforce to quarry the stone, transport the materials, and assemble the structure. Critically, you also need to feed all those workers. None of this is possible without a central authority, a power capable of commanding labor and distributing resources on a massive scale. These first great monuments are, therefore, more than just impressive buildings. They are physical declarations of power. They are symbols, written in stone, that a new order has arrived. A leader, a king, or a high priest now wields the authority to mobilize the entire society towards a common goal. These structures often served multiple purposes. They were religious centers, places where the community could gather to appease the gods and ensure a good harvest. The priests who officiated these rituals held immense influence, their power intertwined with the spiritual well-being of the society. These buildings were also administrative hubs. They contained granaries to store the community's wealth, offices to record tributes and taxes, and courts to dispense justice. They became the physical heart of the burgeoning state, the place from which power radiated outwards. Furthermore, These monuments acted as a powerful tool for social cohesion. Participating in the construction of a great temple or a royal tomb fostered a sense of shared identity. It transformed a loose collection of villagers into a unified people, with a common purpose and a shared reverence for their leaders and their gods. This shared identity was crucial for the stability and growth of these early states. It was the cultural glue that held these increasingly complex societies together. So, as we look back to 1500 BCE, we see a world in transition. The simple life of the farming village was giving way to the dynamic, complex, and often turbulent world of the first civilizations. The food surplus created by agricultural innovation allowed for specialization and trade. This new economic complexity required management, leading to the rise of a central authority, and that authority made its presence known in the most dramatic way possible. By reshaping the very earth, by raising colossal structures that announced the dawn of a new era. These monuments are the birth certificates of civilization, a testament to our ancestors' incredible ability to organize, cooperate, and build a world far grander than any they had known before. It's an incredible story of how society, as we know it, began to take shape. From a single surplus seed grew the mighty structures that would define the ancient world. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, please give this video a thumbs up. And you won't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to discover together. See you next time. Hello and welcome back to our journey into the heart of ancient Mesoamerica. Today, we venture deep into the humid lowlands of southern Veracruz to a place where history was carved in stone, where a civilization rose from the fertile earth, and where the first great center of the Olmec world was born. Welcome to San Lorenzo. Imagine, if you will, a landscape sculpted by rivers, a network of waterways weaving through lush, tropical. It's around 1400 BC in Europe. The Trojan War is still centuries away. In Egypt, the new kingdom is at its peak. But here, on a strategic plateau overlooking the Coatzacoalcos River Basin, something extraordinary is taking shape. This isn't just a village, it's a bustling, organized, and powerful center of human innovation. San Lorenzo is rising. The location itself was a stroke of genius. Positioned on a natural rise, the early inhabitants of San Lorenzo were safe from seasonal floods, giving them a stable foundation upon which to build their world. This elevated position also offered a commanding view of the surrounding territory, a crucial advantage for trade, defense, and control. The rivers were their highways, connecting them to a vast network of resources from the volcanic basalt of the Tuxtla Mountains to the precious jade and serpentine from distant lands. But the true marvel of San Lorenzo lies not just in its location, but in what the Olmecs did with it. They were master engineers, terraforming the plateau itself. They undertook massive, earth-moving projects, leveling ridges and filling in gullies to create a sprawling, sacred, and ceremonial landscape. They constructed artificial platforms and plazas, creating a complex urban layout that mirrored their cosmic beliefs. At the heart of this ancient city was an intricate and sophisticated drainage system, carved from massive basalt stones. These U-shaped troughs were fitted with lids, forming a network of covered channels. Some scholars believe this system was for managing the heavy tropical rainfall, preventing erosion, and keeping their ceremonial spaces pristine. Others suggest a more ritualistic purpose, perhaps channeling sacred waters through the heart of the city. Whatever its primary function, it stands as a testament to their advanced understanding of hydrology and stonework, a feat of engineering, unparalleled in the Americas at the time. And then there are the sculptures, the iconic, colossal heads. 10 of these magnificent portraits have been discovered at San Lorenzo, each one a masterpiece of artistry and power. Carved from single boulders of volcanic basalt, some weighing over 20 tons. They were transported over 60 miles from their mountain quarries. How did they do it? Without wheels, without draft animals, the sheer logistics are mind-boggling. It would have required immense manpower, incredible organization, and an unwavering collective will. These aren't generic faces. Each one is distinct, with individual features, expressions, and headdresses, leading us to believe they are portraits of specific Olmec rulers. Imagine the statement these heads made, placed strategically around the ceremonial plazas. They were symbols of authority, a constant reminder of the divine power of the leaders who governed this thriving society. They stared out at their people and at any visitors, their stoic expressions exuding a quiet, unshakable confidence. But the artistry of San Lorenzo didn't stop with the colossal heads. Archaeologists have unearthed spectacular thrones, or perhaps altars, intricately carved with scenes of rulers emerging from supernatural caves, reinforcing their connection to the spiritual underworld. We find sculptures of human jaguar hybrids, fantastic beings that speak to a rich and complex mythology. We see figures in dynamic poses, ball players, and finely crafted personal ornaments. Every piece tells a story, offering a glimpse into the Olmec worldview. Life in and around San Lorenzo was a delicate balance of peace and power. The fertile riverbanks provided a steady supply of maize, beans, and squash, the staples of their diet. The rivers teemed with fish and turtles. This agricultural abundance supported a growing population, allowing for specialization. While farmers tended the fields, artisans honed their craft in the city. Priests conducted rituals in the plazas, and a powerful elite directed the construction of monumental works. This was a hierarchical society. The sheer scale of the public works, the importation of exotic materials, and the masterful quality of the art all point to a centralized authority capable of commanding immense labor and resources. The rulers of San Lorenzo were not just political leaders. They were likely seen as divine intermediaries, figures who could mediate with the gods of rain, sun, and earth to ensure the prosperity of their people. Their power was peaceful in its daily administration, but absolute in its ideological and physical expression. For nearly 300 years, from about 1200 to 900 BC, San Lorenzo flourished as the dominant force in the region. It was the epicenter of a cultural explosion that would ripple across Mesoamerica for centuries to come. The Olmecs of San Lorenzo established patterns of kingship, ceremonial architecture, and artistic symbolism that would be adopted and adapted by later civilizations, including the Maya and the Aztec. Then, around 900 BC, something changed. The story of San Lorenzo takes a dramatic turn. Monuments were deliberately defaced, ritually killed by having their features damaged. Colossal heads were toppled from their platforms and systematically buried in long lines. Was it an internal rebellion, an invasion from a rival group? Perhaps a cyclical, ritual act of termination. As the city's power waned, and a new center, Venta, began to rise in prominence. The truth remains one of the great mysteries of the Olmec world. The decline of San Lorenzo wasn't the end of the Olmec, but rather the closing of a chapter. The torch was passed, and the center of Olmec influence shifted. But the legacy of this first great capital endured. It was here, on this river-bound plateau, that the foundations of Mesoamerican civilization were laid. The engineering, the art, the political structure, and the religious ideas that blossomed at San Lorenzo set the stage for all the magnificent cultures that would follow. As we stand back and contemplate the sheer ambition of the San Lorenzo Olmecs, we're left with a sense of awe. They reshaped the very earth they lived on, moved mountains of stone to immortalize their leaders, and created a complex society from the ground up. San Lorenzo is more than just a collection of ruins. It is the powerful, beating heart from which a civilization was born. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of San Lorenzo. I hope it's given you a deeper appreciation for the incredible ingenuity of the Olmec people. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more journeys into the ancient past. Hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey into the heart of ancient mysteries. Today, we're tackling one of the most enduring puzzles in archaeology, the incredible Olmec colossal heads. If you've ever seen a picture of these, you know what I'm talking about. These aren't just statues. They are monumental, staring out from the past with an intensity that just grabs you. We're talking about sculptures weighing up to 40 tons, carved with a level of artistry that is simply breathtaking. But the real mystery isn't just their size or beauty. It's how they even exist. Let's set the scene. We're in the tropical lowlands of south-central Mexico, around 1500 BC. The Olmec civilization, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, is flourishing. They're building complex urban centers like San Lorenzo and Venta, developing early forms of writing, and creating a sophisticated society. And at the heart of this society, they are carving these gigantic heads from single blocks of volcanic basalt. What's so incredible is that this basalt didn't come from their backyards. The quarries were located in the Tuxtla Mountains, sometimes over 150 kilometers away from where the heads were ultimately placed. Now, let that sink in. 150 kilometers, that's about 93 miles. And they had to move stones weighing as much as 6 adult elephants across a landscape of dense jungles, treacherous rivers, and swampy terrain. And here's the kicker. They did it all without the wheel. The wheel, for transport, was not used in ancient Mesoamerica. They also didn't have large draft animals like oxen or horses to pull these massive loads. So, the question that has stumped historians and archaeologists for decades is, how on earth did they do it? This is where we dive into the theories, the debates, and the sheer human ingenuity that must have been involved. Let's start by looking at the heads themselves. So far, 17 have been discovered. Each one is unique. They have distinct facial features, different headdresses, and varied expressions. This individuality is a huge clue. Most scholars believe they are portraits of powerful Olmec rulers. Imagine the prestige and authority communicated by having a 40-ton portrait of yourself carved and transported across the land. It's the ultimate statement of power. The headdresses they wear aren't just decorative. They likely symbolize their name, their lineage, or specific achievements. It's like a personal coat of arms, carved in stone for eternity. The carving process itself was a monumental feat. The stone, basalt, is incredibly hard. The Olmecs didn't have metal tools like iron or steel. They would have used harder stones, like jadeite, along with sand and water as an abrasive, to painstakingly grind, peck, and polish the basalt into these lifelike portraits. Think about the hours, the manpower, the sheer dedication required. It wasn't a quick job. It was a generational effort, a testament to the ruler's might and the devotion of his people. Now, let's get back to that mind-boggling transportation problem. How do you move 40 tons of rock without wheels or beasts of burden? The most widely accepted theory involves a combination of raw manpower and clever engineering. The first step would have been to get the massive boulder out of the mountains. They likely carved it into a rough, rounded shape to make it easier to roll. Then, hundreds, perhaps thousands, of laborers would have used ropes, sledges, and levers to drag it downhill toward the nearest river. The rivers were their ancient highways. Once they reached a waterway like the Coatzacoalcos River, the journey would have gotten slightly easier, but no less dangerous. The prevailing theory is that they constructed enormous balsa wood rafts. We're talking about massive rafts, engineered to displace enough water to support the immense weight of the stone. They would have floated these colossal heads downriver, navigating currents and potential hazards along the way. You can imagine the logistics. Coordinating teams of people pulling from the riverbanks, steering with long poles, and praying that the raft holds together. Once they got closer to their destination, like San Lorenzo, they faced the final challenge, moving the head over land from the river to its designated spot in the ceremonial center. Again, this would have required a massive labor force, pulling the statue on wooden sledges over prepared earthen causeways or rollers made of logs. Every foot of progress would have been a hard-won victory. The entire process, from quarry to final placement, could have taken months, even years. It was a massive public works project, requiring incredible organization, planning, and a social structure capable of mobilizing and feeding thousands of workers. But there are other, more fringe theories as well. Some have suggested they used advanced, forgotten technologies. Others point to stories of levitation or outside help. While these ideas are fascinating, the evidence on the ground points towards something even more impressive: the power of human cooperation and ingenuity. The Olmecs didn't need magic. They had engineering, mathematics, and a deep understanding of their environment. They knew the leverage points, the strength of the currents, and the limits of their materials. What's also fascinating is that some of these heads were later defaced or buried, At San Lorenzo, many heads were found clustered together and deliberately interred around 900 BC. Was it a ritual act of decommissioning the ruler's power after his death, or was it the result of an invasion? A rebellion where the successors or conquerors symbolically killed the previous rulers by toppling their portraits. This act of intentional burial adds another layer of mystery. It suggests these heads were more than just art. They were potent symbols of political and spiritual power, so powerful that they needed to be ritually neutralized. The Olmec colossal heads are not just ancient artifacts. They are a direct message from the past. They tell a story of power, ambition, and a level of technical skill and social organization that is hard to comprehend. They challenge our assumptions about what primitive societies were capable of. Without the tools we consider essential, the Olmecs moved mountains. They transformed the landscape and left behind a legacy that continues to inspire awe and wonder thousands of years later. Their mystery is a powerful reminder of the incredible potential that lies within human determination. So, what do you think? How did they pull it off? Was it brute force and rafts? Or is there a piece of the puzzle we're still missing? Let me know your theories down in the comments. I love reading all your different perspectives on these ancient enigmas. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the past. We have so much more to explore together. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey into the heart of the Olmec civilization. Today, in Chapter 6, we're stepping into the workshops of ancient masters to explore their breathtaking command of stone and art. The Olmec weren't just the architects of a great society. They were artisans of the highest order, transforming dense, unforgiving stone into objects of profound beauty and power. Their legacy, carved in jade, basalt, and serpentine, tells a story of incredible skill, deep spiritual belief, and an aesthetic sense that has captivated the world for centuries. So, how did they do it without metal tools? How did they carve and polish some of the hardest stones on earth? Join me as we uncover the secrets of the Olmec masters of stone and art. We'll look at everything from the monumental colossal heads to the most delicate personal ornaments, discovering the techniques and the meanings behind these ancient treasures. Get ready to be amazed by the ingenuity and artistry of Mesoamerica's mother culture. Let's begin with the material that is most synonymous with Olmec art: jade. For the Olmec, jado, or more accurately, jado, was more than just a pretty stone. It was the most precious material in their world, more valuable than gold would be to later cultures. Its vibrant green color was linked to maize, the life-giving crop, and to water, the essence of life itself. Jade symbolized fertility, vitality, and the eternal cycle of nature. Owning and wearing jade was a statement of power, status, and a deep connection to the divine. Imagine an Olmec ruler, adorned with a jade pectoral on his chest, ear spools dangling from his lobes, and beads woven into his headdress. Each piece was not just jewelry, it was a conduit of sacred energy. These objects were believed to hold protective powers and served as a bridge between the physical world and the spiritual realm. When we look at an Olmec jade figurine, we're not just seeing a work of art. We're witnessing a tangible piece of their cosmology, a belief system carved in stone. Now, consider the challenge. Jadeite is an incredibly hard material, tougher than steel. The Olmec had no metal tools, no diamond-tip drills. So, how did they achieve such intricate designs and mirror-like polishes? The answer lies in patience, ingenuity, and a deep understanding of their materials. They used a process of abrasion. This involved using harder stones, like quartz, along with sand and water, to slowly grind away at the jade. Think of it like using sandpaper, but on an epic, painstaking scale. For drilling holes, they would have used hollow reeds or bone, twirling them with a mixture of abrasive sand and water. This would slowly wear a circle into the stone, which could then be punched out. To create the fine lines and facial features we see on their figurines, they would use sharp slivers of stone, meticulously scratching and incising the surface. It was a labor of love and devotion that could take months, or even years, to complete a single piece. The final polish, which gives Olmec jade its signature luster, was achieved by rubbing the piece with fine abrasives, and perhaps polishing it with leather or plant fibers. The result is a surface that feels cool and smooth to the touch, almost as if it's alive. Let's look at some of the most iconic forms of Olmec jade work. The so-called war jaguar motif is one of the most powerful and enigmatic. These figures, often small and portable, blend human and feline features. They typically have a downturned mouth, almond-shaped eyes, and a cleft in the center of their forehead. Scholars believe these represent a central deity in the Olmec pantheon, possibly a rain god or a powerful earth spirit. The transformation from human to jaguar symbolized the shaman's ability to cross between worlds, harnessing the power of the mightiest predator in the Americas. Another stunning example of their skill is the jade celt. Now, a celt is essentially an axe head, but many Olmec celts were not made for chopping wood. They were ritual objects, polished to perfection, and often incised with complex iconography. Some were created in groups and buried in caches as offerings to the gods, like the incredible offering at Venta, known as Offering 4. Their 16 figurines and 6 jade celts were arranged in a scene, buried, and left for millennia. When archaeologists uncovered it, it was like stumbling upon a frozen moment of ancient ritual. These celts, standing upright like sacred pillars, were part of a story we are still trying to fully understand. But the Olmec's mastery wasn't limited to precious jade. They were also masters of monumental basalt sculpture, a completely different challenge. If jade required patience and precision, basalt required brute force and vision. The most famous examples, of course, are the colossal heads. These massive portraits of rulers, weighing up to 50 tons, were carved from volcanic basalt boulders. These boulders were often quarried miles away from the city centers. Imagine the sheer manpower required to transport these giant stones through swamps and jungles without wheels or draft animals. It was a monumental feat of engineering and social organization. Once the boulder was in the workshop, the artists would get to work. They likely started by pecking at the surface with hard hammerstones, slowly roughing out the basic shape of the head. This was a percussive technique, chipping away bit by bit, to create the finer details that expressivize their full lips. The intricate headgear they would have used smaller, more precise stone tools to grind and abrade the surface. The process was physically demanding and required a team of skilled artisans working under the direction of a master sculptor. Each head is a unique portrait, believed to depict a specific Olmec ruler. The individuality is astounding. Some look stern, others serene. They wear distinctive headgear, almost like helmets, which may have been part of a ritual ball game or signified their specific lineage and achievements. These weren't just statues. They were embodiments of power, meant to intimidate rivals and inspire awe in their subjects. They anchored the ruler's authority in the very stone of the earth, creating a permanent presence that would outlast their own lives. Beyond the heads, the Olmec also carved massive thrones, or altars, from basalt. These were huge, rectangular blocks, often with a figure emerging from a niche in the front, as if from a cave portal to the underworld. The ruler would sit atop this throne during ceremonies, reinforcing his position as the intermediary between the earthly realm and the supernatural world. The sides of these thrones are often covered in intricate relief carvings, depicting ancestors or mythological scenes, further cementing the ruler's divine right to lead. And we can't forget the more everyday objects, which are still extraordinary. The Olmec made beautiful, highly polished axes from serpentine and other greenstones. While some might have been functional tools, many were clearly ceremonial. They were status symbols, tools for ritual, and objects of beauty in their own right. They also crafted intricate ceramic vessels, mirrors from polished ilmenite and magnetite that could reflect a hazy image, and figurines from clay that show a huge range of human activity and expression. What connects all of these different works, from the smallest jade bead to the largest colossal head, is a distinct and powerful artistic style. The Olmec aesthetic is grounded in a naturalistic, yet idealized, vision of the human form. There's a sense of volume and weight to their figures. Faces are fleshy, with full lips and broad noses, conveying a sense of serene and confident power. Even in their most abstract representations, like the war jaguar, there's an underlying structure and realism that makes them feel believable and alive. This unified artistic tradition, spread across the Olmec heartland, is a testament to the shared beliefs and strong cultural identity they forged. An Olmec artisan in Venta and one in San Lorenzo, miles apart, were speaking the same visual language. This lenguaje, carved in stone, became the foundation for nearly all subsequent Mesoamerican art. The Maya, the Zapotec, the Aztec, they all drew from the well of Olmec creativity. The Olmec were true masters of their craft. They saw the spirit in the stone and had the skill to bring it forth. Their art wasn't just decorative. It was functional, spiritual, and political. It was the glue that held their society together and the voice through which they spoke to their gods and to eternity. As we stand back and admire these incredible works, we are looking at the very soul of the Olmec people, preserved for us in jade and basalt. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive into Olmec art. The skill and vision of these ancient masters are truly humbling. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the ancient world. We'd love to have you as part of our community. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient world. Today, we're venturing deep into the heart of Mesoamerica, into the humid lowlands of what is now Mexico, to uncover the secrets of its mother culture, the Olmec. We've marveled at their colossal stone heads and sophisticated society, but now we must ask, what did they believe? What forces shaped their universe? The answer, it seems, often stares back with the powerful, enigmatic eyes of a jaguar. Imagine walking through the dense, green jungle over 3,000 years ago. The air is thick, alive with the sounds of unseen creatures. Suddenly, a shadow moves, a sleek, muscular form with a coat of rosetta, apex predator, the master of the night and the day, the jaguar. For the Olmec, this creature wasn't just an animal. It was a god, a spirit, a symbol of ultimate power. It could move between worlds, arving on land, in water and climbing trees, to touch the sky. It was a living embodiment of strength, fertility, and divine authority. And the Olmec didn't just worship it. They sought to become it. This is where we encounter one of the most fascinating and recurring themes in Olmec art, the war jaguar. Now, this isn't a werewolf story from a horror movie. It's something much deeper, a spiritual transformation. Across countless jade artifacts, pottery, and stone carvings, we see these incredible hybrid figures. They blend human features with those of a jaguar. Look closely at these artifacts. You might see a human-like body, but with a downturned, snarling mouth, almond-shaped eyes that slant like a feline's, and a cleft in the forehead. This isn't a monster. It's a depiction of a shaman, a ruler, or a deity in a state of spiritual metamorphosis. This transformation was central to Olmec religious practice. Shamans, the spiritual leaders of the community, were believed to have the ability to cross the veil between the physical and spiritual realms by consuming certain natural substances, performing rhythmic dances, and entering deep trances. They could shed their human skin and take on the spirit and power of the jaguar. In this state, they could communicate with gods, influence the weather, ensure a bountiful harvest, and heal the sick. The jaguar wasn't just a symbol of physical might. It was the key to accessing the supernatural world. So, when an Olmec ruler was depicted with jaguar-like features, it was a powerful political statement. It declared that he wasn't just a man. He was a divine king, a divine jaguar, who held the same cosmic authority as the jungle's greatest predator. His right to rule was granted by the gods, and his power was as undeniable as the jaguar's. These portrayals cemented the ruler's status, linking his earthly power directly to the sacred, supernatural forces that govern their world. Now, let's turn our attention to another equally compelling motif, often intertwined with the jaguar. The child. We frequently see powerful, stoic figures, rulos or deities presenting a small, infantile figure. Sometimes this child is limp, almost lifeless, but other times it appears dynamic, even baby-like, and very often this child also bears the features of the war jaguar. This jaguar child is a profound enigma. What does it represent? One compelling theory connects it to Olmec origin myths. Storytellers might have spoken of a primordial union, a legendary event where a human woman and a jaguar came together. From this mythic encounter, a race of superbeings was born, the Olmec, people themselves, or at least their ruling lineage. The child, therefore, symbolizes this divine ancestry. By holding the jaguar child, a ruler is essentially holding up proof of his sacred bloodline, a direct descendant of the union between humanity and the ultimate power of nature. It's a divine birth certificate, carved in stone for all to see. Another interpretation views the jaguar child as a symbol of fertility and renewal. The jaguar, with its immense strength, was linked to the life-giving power of the earth and the rain. The Olmec were farmers, dependent on maize. Their survival hinged on the cycles of nature. The child, held forth, could be an offering to the gods or a representation of the desired outcome. The birth of new life, the sprouting of new crops. The jaguar's power wasn't just for war and dominance. It was for ensuring the continuity of life itself. The jaguar child becomes a prayer for abundance, a symbol of hope held in the arms of a divine guardian. Consider the famous sculpture known as El Señor de las Limas. Here we see a seated youth holding a jaguar baby. The youth's own body is incised with carvings of other supernatural faces. This single sculpture is like a theological textbook. It speaks of lineage, of the responsibility to protect the sacred essence of their people, and of the complex relationships between humans, gods, and the spirit world. It's not just a statue. It's a story, a statement of faith, and a political manifesto all in one. These themes of transformation, divine right, and sacred lineage weren't confined to grand monuments. They permeated daily life. Small, personal artifacts, made of precious jade, carved into the shape of celts or axes also, featured the jaguar face. These weren't tools for chopping wood. They were ritual objects, imbued with spiritual power. An individual might have carried one as a personal conduit to the spirit world, a source of protection and strength. Imagine a farmer, a warrior, or a priest holding this cool, smooth stone, feeling a connection to the raw, untamable power of the jaguar and the divine order of the cosmos. As we piece together these symbols, a powerful jaguar, the transformative shaman, the divine ruler, and the enigmatic child, a picture of the Olmec spiritual universe begins to form. It was a world where the boundaries between human, animal, and God were fluid. Power wasn't just political, it was spiritual, rooted in the very fabric of the natural world. The jaguar was the ultimate expression of this principle, and by associating themselves with it, the Olmec asserted their place within this cosmic order. Though the Olmec civilization faded, their symbols did not. The reverence for the jaguar, the concept of a divine king, and the art of spiritual transformation echoed through the ages. We see their influence in the cultures that followed in the Maya, the Zapotec, and later, the Aztec. The Olmec laid the spiritual foundation, and the jaguar remained a central figure in the Mesoamerican pantheon for millennia. They may be gone, but the roar of the Olmec jaguar still reverberates through history, a timeless symbol of power, divinity, and the wild heart of an ancient world. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into Olmec spirituality. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into our shared past. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through the mists of time. In our last chapter, we witnessed the mysterious decline of San Lorenzo, the first great capital of the Olmec civilization. But as one power waned, another was already gathering strength, casting its shadow across the Mesoamerican heartland. Today, we traveled to the sacred city of Venta, a testament to the Olmec's enduring genius and spiritual depth. Imagine a city rising from the swampy lowlands of what is now Tabasco, Mexico. This wasn't a city built of convenience, but of conviction. Venta was a ceremonial center, a place where the human and the divine met. Unlike the sprawling San Lorenzo, Venta was meticulously planned, a marvel of ancient urban design. Its central axis, aligned with remarkable precision 8 degrees west of true north, points to a deep understanding of cosmology and a desire to harmonize the earthly realm with the celestial. This wasn't just city planning. It was a physical prayer etched into the landscape. At the heart of this sacred precinct stood a structure unlike any other in Mesoamerica at the time. The Great Pyramid, rising over 100 feet from the flat coastal plain. It was the largest pyramid of its era, but its shape is what truly captivates the imagination. Instead of the stepped pyramids we associate with later cultures like the Maya or Aztecs, the Great Pyramid of Venta was a massive earthen cone, its fluted sides resembling a volcano. Was this a deliberate homage to the volcanic mountains that sourced their precious basalt? Or did it represent a portal to the underworld? A sacred mountain where gods and ancestors resided. Standing before it, you can almost feel the spiritual gravity of the place, a focal point for a civilization's faith. As we move north from the pyramid, we enter Complex A, the most sacred area of Venta. This was no ordinary public square. It was a restricted, holy ground, a burial place for revered rulers, and a repository for some of the most extraordinary offerings ever discovered. Imagine archaeologists carefully excavating through layers of colored clay, uncovering intricate mosaics made of serpentine blocks, laid out in abstract patterns resembling a jaguar mask. What's astonishing is that these beautiful, labor-intensive creations were not meant to be seen. Shortly after their completion, they were deliberately and ceremonially buried. This act speaks volumes about the Olmec worldview. The process, the ritual offering itself, was more important than any human audience. It was a direct communication with the earth, with the underworld, with their gods. Within this sacred complex, tombs were discovered that revealed the immense power and wealth of Venta's rulers. One tomb, constructed from massive basalt columns, housed the remains of two individuals, adorned with jade beads, pendants, and other precious artifacts. Jade, for the Olmecs, was more valuable than gold. It symbolized water, maize, fertility, and life itself. The effort required to transport these multi-ton basalt columns over 60 miles from the Tuxtla Mountains is staggering. It tells us of a highly organized society with a powerful leadership capable of commanding immense labor forces, all in the service of honoring their deified ancestors. But Venta is perhaps most famous for its colossal heads. 4 of these magnificent stone portraits were found here, guarding the sacred precincts. Like those at San Lorenzo, each face is unique, a portrait of a powerful ruler. Their stern expressions and distinctive headgear project authority and individuality. Carved from single boulders of volcanic basalt, their transportation and creation were monumental undertakings. Imagine the scene. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of workers hauling these massive stones on rafts and rollers through jungle and swamp. These weren't just statues. They were embodiments of dynastic power, symbols of the leader's ability to control both the natural and supernatural worlds. Placing them at the entrances to the city was a clear message to all who approached. You are entering the domain of a mighty and divine king. Beyond the colossal heads, the artistic legacy of Venta is rich and varied. We find stelae, large stone slabs carved with intricate scenes. Stela 3, for instance, depicts 2 figures, likely a ruler and a divine being, in a face-to-face encounter, blurring the lines between the human and the supernatural. We also discover beautiful jade figurines and ceremonial axes, known as celts, incised with images of the Olmec maize god, reflecting the fundamental importance of agriculture to their survival and belief system. One of the most famous finds is offering 4, a collection of 16 jade and serpentine figurines, arranged in a semicircle, as if caught in the middle of a ritual procession. A single figure stands opposite them, as if addressing the group. The entire scene was buried in sand. It's a frozen moment, a narrative in stone that gives us an intimate glimpse into Olmec ceremonial life. Who were these figures? What were they doing? The mystery is as compelling as the artistry. Life in Venta wasn't just about grand ceremonies and powerful rulers. A vast support system of farmers, artisans, and laborers was necessary to sustain the city. Surrounding the ceremonial core, villages would have dotted the landscape, their inhabitants cultivating maize, beans, and squash in the fertile river plains. They would have fished in the rivers and lagoons, providing the sustenance that allowed the elite to focus on rituals, astronomy, and warfare. This intricate web of society, with the sacred city at its center, allowed Olmec culture to flourish for nearly 500 years, around 400 BC. After centuries of dominance, Venta too began to decline. Just like at San Lorenzo, the reasons are not entirely clear. Environmental changes, such as the shifting of river courses that disrupted agriculture and trade routes, may have played a significant role. It's also possible that internal strife or challenges from emerging rival centers led to a loss of power. And just like at San Lorenzo, we see evidence of deliberate destruction. Many of the monuments were defaced and toppled, a symbolic act that often signals the end of a dynasty or the collapse of a political system. The sacred city was abandoned, and the jungle slowly began to reclaim its grand pyramid and plazas. The legacy of Venta, however, did not die. The concepts pioneered here the pyramid as a sacred mountain, the precise cosmological alignment of cities, the deification of rulers, and the artistic canon centered on jade and colossal stone would echo throughout Mesoamerican history. The Maya, the Zapotecs, and later the Aztecs would all build upon the foundations laid by the Olmecs of Venta. They were the cultural ancestors, the mother culture whose innovations would shape the destiny of countless civilizations to come. Venta was more than a city. It was a wellspring of ideas, a crucible where the core elements of Mesoamerican cosmology and kingship were forged. Thank you for joining us on this walk through the plazas of Venta. The story of the Olmecs is one of incredible innovation, profound spirituality, and enduring mystery. Their influence is a powerful reminder that even when a civilization falls silent, its voice can still be heard in the achievements of those who follow. If you've enjoyed this journey, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the ancient world. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Imagine a world without wheels, without beasts of burden strong enough to haul a mountain. Now, picture a civilization that decided to move mountains anyway. This is the story of the Olmec, the mother culture of Mesoamerica, and their colossal stone heads. These are not just sculptures, they are monuments to human will, carved from volcanic basalt, some weighing up to 50 tons. They were found dozens, sometimes over 100 kilometers from their source quarries, in the Tuxtla Mountains. The question that has puzzled archaeologists for generations isn't just how did they carve them, but how on earth did they move them? The answer isn't a story of alien technology or lost secrets, but something far more profound, a story of human cooperation, ingenuity, and sheer, raw effort. It's a testament to what people can achieve when they work together, driven by a shared purpose. Let's journey back 3,000 years. The air is thick with humidity, the sounds of the jungle a constant chorus. Deep in the Tuxtla Mountains, a team of Olmec workers has just finished quarrying a massive basalt boulder. Using stone tools, fire, and water, they have painstakingly broken it free from the mountainside. The rock itself is a sleeping giant, destined to become the face of a revered ruler. But first, it must travel. The journey begins on land. Imagine hundreds of people, their muscles straining, working in perfect synchrony. They clear a path through the dense jungle, a monumental task in itself. Then, using a system of log rollers, ropes made from tough vegetable fibers, and immense wooden sledges, they begin to inch the behemoth forward. It's a slow, grueling procession. Each movement is carefully coordinated. A chant rises from the workers, a rhythmic pulse that keeps them pulling as one. This isn't just manual labor. It's a ritual, a collective act of devotion. Every heave, every drop of sweat is an offering. They are literally moving a mountain for their gods, for their king. The land journey is only the first part of this epic undertaking. The true highway for the Olmec was water. Their heartland was a web of rivers, estuaries, and coastal plains. These waterways were their arteries of commerce, communication, and, in this case, transportation. After dragging the colossal stone from the mountains to the nearest navigable river, the next phase of the challenge began. How do you float a 50-ton stone? The prevailing theory points to the use of massive rafts, but these were no ordinary rafts. Picture immense balsa wood logs, a material known for its incredible buoyancy, lashed together with sturdy ropes. Perhaps they used gourds or other buoyant materials to increase lift. It would have taken an entire fleet of these large rafts, strategically positioned and bound together to support the immense weight. The stone would have been carefully loaded, a moment of incredible tension and precision. One wrong move, and months of work could be lost to the riverbed. Once afloat, the journey continued, but it was far from easy. The currents of the rivers, especially during the rainy season, could be powerful and treacherous. Teams of men in dugout canoes would have guided the raft, pulling and steering it with long poles and ropes. Others would walk along the riverbanks, helping to navigate the raft through narrow channels and around obstacles. This was a continuous 24-hour operation. By night, torchlight would have flickered across the water, the convoy of canoes and the massive, silent passenger moving like a ghostly procession through the darkness. Think of the social organization required for this. It wasn't just about the physical labor. Someone had to feed the hundreds of workers. Someone had to craft the miles of rope, build the sledges, and construct the rafts. Leaders and engineers had to plan the route, anticipating seasonal water levels and potential hazards. This was a project that involved the entire community, a massive mobilization of resources and people. It speaks volumes about the Olmec social structure, their ability to organize complex, large-scale projects over long periods. This incredible effort wasn't just for practical purposes. It was a statement. By bringing these stones from the sacred mountains, the dwelling places of gods and spirits, into the heart of their ceremonial centers like San Lorenzo or Venta, the Olmec were physically linking the spiritual world with the mortal one. The stone head, once erected, wasn't just a portrait of a ruler. It was a conduit of power, infused with the spiritual essence of the mountain and sanctified by the collective sacrifice of the community. The act of moving the stone was as important as the finished sculpture. It was a pilgrimage in reverse. The mountain came to the people. The process forged a bond between them, strengthening their sense of community and shared identity. Every person who participated, whether pulling a rope, pulling a canoe, or cooking a meal for the workers, was part of this sacred endeavor. They weren't just transporting a rock. They were participating in an act of creation, a ritual that affirmed their place in the cosmos and their devotion to their leaders and their gods. The Olmec didn't leave behind written records to explain their motivations, but the evidence is there, silent and monumental in the stone itself. The journey of these colossal heads is a powerful metaphor. It teaches us that the greatest achievements of humanity are not born from a single genius, but from the unified effort of many. It's a story of how a society, bound by a common belief and a shared vision, could literally move mountains. It shows that when we pull together, when we dedicate our collective energy to a single purpose, there is little we cannot accomplish. The Olmec heads are more than just archaeological wonders. They are timeless reminders of human potential. They stand as a tribute to the power of unity, the endurance of the human spirit, and the profound things we can build when we work in harmony. The next time you see a picture of these stoic, powerful faces, remember the journey. Remember the hundreds of hands, the straining muscles, the rhythmic chants, and the unwavering faith that carried a mountain across the land and down the river, all to honor a legacy carved in stone. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the Olmec world. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please consider liking the video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the mysteries of the past. Let us know in the comments what you think about this incredible feat of engineering and devotion. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the annals of history. Today, we venture deep into the heart of ancient Mesoamerica, to a time long before the Aztecs or the Maya, to uncover the spiritual world of a civilization shrouded in mystery. The Olmec. Imagine a world where the veil between the physical and the spiritual was thin, a world where rulers were not just kings, but divine conduits. This was the world of the Olmec, the rubber people, who laid the foundations for so many of the great cultures that followed. Their legacy isn't just in the colossal stoneheads they left behind, but in a profound spiritual system that sought to understand the cosmos and humanity's place within it. So, find a quiet space, let your mind wander, and join me as we explore the sacred rituals, the precious offerings, and the very soul of the Olmec civilization. The Olmec worldview was a tapestry woven from threads of earth, sky, and a mysterious underworld. For them, the universe wasn't a random collection of objects. It was a living, breathing entity, a sacred landscape pulsating with divine energy. Mountains were not just geological formations. They were the homes of gods, portals to the celestial realm. Caves were not mere holes in the ground. They were the sacred wombs of the earth, gateways to the watery underworld. The rustle of leaves in the jungle, the roar of a jaguar, the slithering of a serpentine were whispers from the spirit world. This concept, known as animism, where every element of nature possesses a spirit, was central to their beliefs. They saw the cosmos as a three-tiered structure, a celestial realm above, our earthly plane in the middle, and the watery underworld below, all interconnected and in constant communication. The great Ceiba tree, or world tree, was often depicted as the axis mundi, the cosmic pillar whose roots delved into the underworld and whose branches reached for the heavens, connecting all three realms. At the very center of this sacred cosmos stood the Olmec ruler. This was no ordinary king or chief. The ruler was a shaman, a priest, and a divine intermediary. He was believed to possess the unique and awesome ability to journey between the physical world of mortals and the ethereal plane of spirits and gods. He was the bridge, the living conduit who ensured balance and harmony between humanity and the divine. This wasn't just a claim to power. It was a profound spiritual responsibility. The well-being of the entire community, the success of the harvest, the coming of the rains. Protection from harm rested upon the ruler's ability to successfully communicate with the supernatural forces that governed the world. His authority was not derived from military might alone, but from his sacred connection to the cosmos. This belief is immortalized in their art, where rulers are often depicted with a blend of human and animal features, symbolizing their power to transform and traverse different realms of existence. To maintain this cosmic balance and communicate with the gods, the Olmec engaged in elaborate and deeply meaningful rituals. These were not casual affairs, but carefully orchestrated ceremonies, often held at sacred sites like Venta or San Lorenzo. Picture a ceremonial plaza, torches flickering against the darkening sky, the air thick with the scent of burning copal incense. At the heart of the ritual, the ruler would prepare for his spiritual journey. This often involved entering a trance-like state, a sacred altered consciousness that allowed his spirit to break free from its physical bonds. This state could be induced through rhythmic chanting, intense meditation, the disorienting effects of smoke, or perhaps even the use of natural psychoactive plants found in the surrounding jungle. The goal was to open a doorway, to make contact with the powerful deities who controlled the forces of nature. These rituals were communal events, reinforcing social bonds and reaffirming the ruler's sacred role as the people's guardian and intercessor. Offerings were a crucial component of these sacred ceremonies. They were gifts to the gods, tokens of respect, and a means of reciprocal exchange. The Olmec believed that just as they depended on the gods for sustenance and life, the gods, in turn, required nourishment from the mortal world to maintain cosmic order. These were not just any gifts. Great caches of precious materials have been unearthed by archaeologists, revealing the depth of their devotion. Imagine hundreds of polished Celts ceremonial axes carefully arranged in intricate patterns, and then buried, hidden from human eyes, intended only for the gods. These weren't tools for work. They were objects of pure ritual significance, their placement a form of sacred geometry. These offerings were a testament to the community's collective effort and faith, a sacrifice of immense value given freely to the spirit world. It was a beautiful, silent conversation between the Olmec people and the forces they held sacred. A promise buried in the earth. Among all the offerings, none was more precious to the Olmec than jade. This vibrant green stone was more valuable than gold. Its color was a mirror of the natural world, evoking the verdant corn stalks that sustained them and the life-giving waters of rivers and springs. Jade was not just a beautiful mineral. It was the embodiment of life, fertility, and eternity. It was considered the ultimate offering, a piece of the sacred earth transformed by human hands into an object of divine beauty. Olmec artisans were masters of their craft, carving jade into exquisite figurines, masks, and jewelry. These weren't mere decorations. A jade mask might be placed over the face of a deceased ruler to ensure his rebirth in the spirit world. A jade figurine might represent a deity or an ancestral spirit. Holding a piece of Olmec jade is like holding a prayer solidified into stone, a tangible piece of their spiritual essence. Its cool, smooth surface seems to hum with the energy of a civilization that saw the divine in the very substance of the earth. And then there was the most potent, the most vital offering of all: blood. For the Olmec, as for many Mesoamerican cultures that followed, blood was the ultimate life force. It was the sacred fluid that animated the body and contained the essence of the soul. The act of bloodletting, or ritual auto-sacrifice, was not an act of violence, but one of profound piety. The ruler, as the chief intermediary, would perform this sacred duty on behalf of his people. Using sharp implements like obsidian blades or stingray spines, he would perforate his own body perhaps, the tongue, the ears, or other sensitive areas to offer his own precious life force to the gods. This was the ultimate gift, a demonstration of his commitment, and a way to nourish the deities who, in turn, would ensure the continuity of life. The smoke from the burning blood-soaked paper was believed to travel up to the celestial realm, carrying the ruler's prayers directly to the gods. It was a deeply personal and powerful act that reaffirmed the sacred covenant between humanity and the divine. This spiritual world was populated by a pantheon of powerful, often enigmatic deities. While we don't know all their names, their identities are fused into the art they left behind. A dominant figure is the Olmec dragon, a crocodilian being with flaming eyebrows, often associated with the earth, agriculture, and fire. There was the bird monster, a harpy-eagle deity connected to the heavens and the sun, and perhaps most famously, the jaguar. This mesmerizing hybrid, part human and part jaguar, appears constantly in Olmec art. With its downturned mouth, almond-shaped eyes, and feline features, it likely represents the ruler's power of transformation, his ability to harness the strength, stealth, and spiritual power of the most formidable predator in the Mesoamerican jungle. The jaguar was the ruler's spirit companion, his alter ego in the natural world. These deities were not distant, abstract figures. They were active forces, chimerical beings who embodied the awesome and sometimes frightening powers of nature, and the ruler's shamanic ability to navigate that sacred power. As we bring our journey to a close, let's reflect on the profound legacy of Olmec spirituality. They created a complex religious framework that would resonate for millennia. Their concepts of a tiered cosmos, the divine ruler as a shaman, the importance of blood sacrifice and deities, like the feathered serpent which likely had its origins in the Olmec dragon, were all adopted and adapted by later civilizations like the Maya and the Aztecs. The Olmec were the spiritual pioneers of Mesoamerica. Their world was one where the sacred was not separate from the everyday, but was woven into the very fabric of existence. Every mountain, every stone, every drop of blood was imbued with meaning. They teach us that for some, the world can be a living temple, and that humanity's quest for connection with the divine is one of the most ancient and enduring stories of all. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of the sacred world of the Olmec. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the mysteries of our past. Your support means the world and allows us to continue bringing these stories to light. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever stood before a work of art and felt a sense of awe? A feeling that you're in the presence of something truly ancient and powerful? That's the exact feeling you get when you face the colossal stone heads of the Olmec civilization. These aren't just giant sculptures. They're windows into a world where kings were not just rulers, but gods walking among mortals. Welcome back to our journey through ancient mysteries. Today, we're exploring Chapter 11, The Ruler as Living God. The Olmec civilization, flourishing in the lowlands of south-central Mexico between roughly 1500 and 400 BCE, is often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica. They laid the groundwork for later civilizations like the Maya and the Aztecs, from their calendar systems to their ritual ball games. But perhaps their most enigmatic and iconic legacy are these monumental stone heads, carved from massive boulders of volcanic basalt, some weighing up to 50 tons. They were transported over 100 kilometers from the mountains to the Olmec heartland. The sheer logistics of this feat without wheeled transport or metal tools, is mine. It speaks volumes about the power and resources of the society that created them. For a long time, the purpose of these heads was a mystery. Were they gods? Warriors? Ball players? While they do wear helmet-like headdresses, the consensus among archaeologists today is that each head is a portrait of a powerful Olmec ruler. What's fascinating is that no two heads are alike. Each one has distinct facial features, a unique expression, and a different headdress, suggesting they are individualized portraits. Think of them as the official presidential portraits of their day, but on a scale meant to declare eternal power. They are stern, powerful, and deeply human, capturing a specific individual's likeness. But here's where it gets truly interesting. These weren't just portraits of men. They were portraits of divine kings. In the Olmec worldview, the line between the human and the divine was incredibly thin. The ruler was the primary intermediary between the earthly realm and the supernatural world. He was the conduit, the bridge, through which cosmic energies flowed to ensure the well-being of his people. His authority didn't just come from military might or political skill. It came from a sacred, divine mandate. He was, in essence, a living god. This concept of sacred kingship is deeply tied to the cycles of nature. The Olmec lived in a fertile but challenging environment. Their survival depended on the timely arrival of rains, the flooding of rivers that renewed the soil, and the successful harvest of maize, their staple crop, who ensured this delicate balance was maintained. The ruler. Through complex rituals and ceremonies, the king aligned himself with the cosmos. He tracked the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, understanding their influence on the agricultural calendar. The changing of the seasons, the solstices, and the equinoxes were not just astronomical events. They were sacred moments that required the king's intervention to reaffirm the cosmic order. Think about the symbolism. The ruler's headdress often contains elements related to the natural world and supernatural beings. Like the jaguar, a creature revered for its strength and its ability to move between the worlds of day and night, earth and water. By wearing these symbols, the king was essentially embodying the powers of the cosmos. He was the rainbringer, the guarantor of fertility, the master of the agricultural cycle. His personal health and vitality were directly linked to the health and vitality of the entire kingdom. If the king was strong, the crops would be bountiful. If he faltered, disaster could follow. This connection to the celestial and agricultural cycles explains why so much effort was poured into creating his image in stone. The colossal heads were more than just monuments to a king's reign. They were anchors of sacred power. By placing these massive portraits at the heart of their ceremonial centers, the Olmec were essentially grounding the divine energy of the ruler into the very earth. The stone itself, basalt, comes from volcanic mountains, places of immense power and creation. The act of carving the ruler's face into this potent material was a way of making his divine status permanent, ensuring his protective influence would last long after his mortal life had ended. Some theories suggest that when a ruler died, his colossal head was ritually killed or decommissioned, sometimes by defacing it or burying it. This wasn't an act of disrespect. Instead, it might have been a way to release his spirit and transfer power to his successor. A new ruler would then commission his own portrait, starting the cycle anew. This cycle of creation, ritual use, and burial mirrors the natural cycles of life, death, and rebirth that governed their world. Planting of a seed, its growth, harvest, and the subsequent planting of a new seed. The king's role as a divine figure also involved personal sacrifice. While not as extensively documented as in later Mesoamerican cultures, it's believed that Olmec rulers engaged in bloodletting rituals. By offering their own sacred blood, they were feeding the gods and repaying the debt for creation, thus ensuring the continuation of the world. This act reinforced their unique position, as only the ruler, with his divine essence, could perform such a potent offering. He was literally giving his life force to sustain his people. So when we gaze upon the serene, powerful faces of the Olmec heads, we're not just looking at kings. We are looking at the human embodiment of the cosmos. We're seeing the sun, the rain, and the maize harvest given a human face. These rulers were the central pillars of their society, holding the physical and spiritual worlds together. Their portraits, carved in everlasting stone, were a declaration to all friends and foes alike. This land was protected by a divine power, a living God, whose presence guaranteed order and prosperity. The Olmec may have vanished centuries ago, but their colossal heads remain, silent testaments to a profound belief system where humanity, nature, and the divine were inextricably linked. They challenge us to see leadership not just as a political office, but as a sacred trust, a responsibility for the well-being of the world. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the world of the Olmec divine kings. It's a powerful reminder of how ancient cultures perceive their place in the universe. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button, subscribe for more journeys into the past, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode. What do you think the Olmec heads represent? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of the Olmec civilization. Today, we step onto the court for one of ancient Mesoamerica's most profound and enduring traditions, the ceremonial bull game. Forget everything you think you know about modern sports. This wasn't just a game. It was a ritual, a cosmic drama, and a cornerstone of Olmec society. Close your eyes for a moment and listen. Can you hear it? That rhythmic thud, ... thud, ... thud, ... It's the sound of a solid rubber ball, a sound that echoed through Olmec ceremonial centers over 3,000 years ago. The Olmecs, flourishing in the tropical lowlands of what is now Mexico, are widely considered the inventors of this incredible spectacle. They were the first to master the art of vulcanizing rubber, transforming the sap of the Castilla elastica tree into the bouncing heart of the game. This innovation wasn't just practical, it was revolutionary, setting the stage for a tradition that would last for millennia. So, what exactly was this game? Picture a long, narrow court, often shaped like a capital I, flanked by sloping stone walls. Two teams would face each other, their mission to keep the heavy rubber ball in play. But here's the catch. They couldn't use their hands or feet. Players would strike the ball with their hips, thighs, and sometimes their forearms, contorting their bodies in a display of incredible athletic skill. They wore protective gearlocks around their waists, padding on their knees and elbows because this was a high-impact, physically demanding contest. A solid rubber ball, weighing up to 9 pounds, could cause serious injury if it hit an unprotected part of the body. The sheer agility and strength required to play were immense. Archaeological evidence paints a vivid picture. At San Lorenzo, one of the oldest Olmec centers, archaeologists have unearthed numerous rubber balls, preserved for centuries in a sacrificial bog. These aren't just artifacts. They are silent witnesses to countless games played long ago. We've also found stone yokes, beautifully carved and weighing a ton, which are believed to be ceremonial versions of the protective belts worn by players. These monumental sculptures hint at the game's immense importance. It wasn't just a pastime. It was integrated into the very fabric of Olmec ritual life. Figurines depicting players in dynamic poses, forever frozen mid-game, further confirm its central role. But the Olmec ball game was far more than a sport. It was a deeply symbolic act, a moving metaphor for the cosmos itself. The court represented the world, and the ball's movement mirrored the celestial dance of the sun, moon, and stars. As the ball bounced back and forth, it symbolized the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The game was a reenactment of the great cosmic struggle between light and darkness, order and chaos. The players weren't just athletes, they were participants in a sacred drama, their actions echoing the deeds of the gods. This brings us to the game's most sobering aspect: sacrifice. While direct evidence from the Olmec period is debated, later Mesoamerican cultures that inherited the ball game, like the Maya and the Aztecs, clearly linked it to ritual sacrifice. In some cases, the captain of the losing team, or sometimes, paradoxically, the winning team, would be sacrificed. This wasn't seen as a punishment, but as the ultimate honor. To give one's life in the context of the ball game was to feed the gods and ensure the continued balance of the universe. It was the ultimate act of renewal, ensuring that the sun would continue to rise and the rains would continue to fall. The game was a way to mediate between the human world and the divine, and sacrifice was the bridge that connected them. Imagine the atmosphere. The air is thick with the smell of burning copal incense. The rhythmic beat of drums and the sound of flutes filled the ceremonial center. The crowd, a mix of elites and commoners, watches with rapt attention, their collective fate seemingly hanging on every bounce of the ball. The game was a public spectacle, a way to reinforce social order and religious belief. The ruler, often depicted as a great ball player himself, would preside over the ceremony, his authority linked to his ability to orchestrate these powerful rituals. The ball game was political theater, a demonstration of power and a way to unify the community under a shared cosmic vision. The legacy of the Olmec ball game is staggering. It spread throughout Mesoamerica, adopted and adapted by virtually every major civilization that followed. From the grand ball courts of Chichen Itza in the Maya world, to the heart of the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan. The game endured. The rules changed. The court designs varied, but the core symbolic meaning, cosmic struggle, the cycle of life and death. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived, they were stunned by this game, unlike anything they had ever seen. They wrote with fascination and horror about the bouncing rubber ball and the ritual sacrifices that sometimes followed. So, as we stand on the edge of this phantom court, we must see the Olmecs not just as builders of colossal heads, but as the progenitors of a profound spiritual and athletic tradition. They gave Mesoamerica a way to physically enact its deepest beliefs, a way to play out the drama of creation on a human scale. The ball game was a complex tapestry of sport, religion, and politics, a ritual that brought the community together and connected them to the cosmos. It was a serious, sacred event, where the stakes were nothing less than the continuation of the world itself. The simple bounce of a rubber ball held the weight of the universe. Thank you for joining us for this chapter. The story of the Olmecs is a story of innovation and deep spiritual belief, and the ball game is one of its most powerful expressions. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into ancient history. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Ever wondered how ancient civilizations got their hands on luxury goods from hundreds, even thousands of miles away, long before the internet or even basic roads? Let's travel back in time, deep into the heart of ancient Mesoamerica, to uncover the secrets of the Olmec, the region's first major civilization. This isn't just a story about statues and pyramids. It's a story about connection, power, and the incredible reach of a people who laid the groundwork for empires to come. Welcome to Chapter 13. Trade and Influence. The Olmec heartland, centered in the tropical lowlands of what is now south-central Mexico, was a lush but challenging environment. It was swampy, humid, and lacked many of the resources the Olmec prized most. Specifically, they had a deep reverence for two materials: shimmering green jade and razor-sharp volcanic glass, obsidian. But here's the catch. Neither of these materials could be found anywhere near their major centers, like San Lorenzo or La Venta. How did they get them? The answer lies in one of history's most impressive early trade networks. Imagine vast distances, dense jungles, and formidable mountain ranges. The Olmec didn't have beasts of burden like horses or oxen, nor did they have the wheel for transport. Everything moved on the backs of human porters or along riverways and dugout canoes. Despite these monumental challenges, they established trade routes that were nothing short of extraordinary. Their quest for precious materials connected them to peoples and places far beyond their immediate world. Let's talk about jade. For the Olmec, jade was more than just a pretty stone. It was the ultimate symbol of life, fertility, and maize, the crop that sustained them. It was believed to hold immense spiritual power. The most coveted jade, a specific type of brilliant green jadeite, came from one primary source: the Motagua River Valley in what is now Guatemala, over 600 miles away from the Olmec heartland. Can you picture the expeditions? Olmec traders, navigating treacherous terrain, forging relationships with local communities, all to acquire this sacred stone. The jade was then brought back to their workshops and masterfully carved by skilled artisans into stunning gilts. Masks, and figurines objects that embodied their cosmology and political power. Then there's obsidian. In a world without metal tools, obsidian was the cutting edge of technology. This volcanic glass could be fractured to create blades sharper than a modern surgical scalpel. It was essential for everything from daily tasks like preparing food to ritual practices, including bloodletting ceremonies. The Olmecs sourced their obsidian from various locations, but some of the most important were the highlands of Mexico, particularly from sites near modern-day Oaxaca and the Pachuca region. Hundreds of miles in different directions. Archaeologists can trace the obsidian found at Olmec sites back to its exact volcanic source through chemical analysis, creating a detailed map of this ancient superhighway of trade. But this network wasn't just a one-way street. The Olmec weren't just taking, they were also giving. What did they trade in return for these exotic goods? While perishable goods like textiles or cacao are hard for archaeologists to find, we can infer they traded valuable local resources. The Olmec heartland was rich in rubber, from which they famously made rubber balls for their ritual game. They also likely traded beautifully crafted pottery and the highly sought-after shells from the Gulf Coast. However, their most significant export wasn't a physical object. It was their culture. As Olmec traders journeyed far and wide, they brought their ideas, beliefs, and artistic styles with them. This is where we see their influence truly explode across Mesoamerica. The iconic Olmec war jaguar motif, snarling baby-faced figure that combines human and jaguar features, starts appearing on pottery and monuments in distant regions. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a sign of cultural transmission. Local leaders in places like the Valley of Mexico or along the Pacific coast began adopting Olmec-style symbols to enhance their own prestige and power. Associating oneself with the powerful and sophisticated Olmec was a way to climb the social ladder. Think of it like this. The Olmec were the trendsetters of their time. Their distinctive art, their complex religious ideas centered on shamanism and animal spirits, and their political structure, likely headed by powerful chiefs or kings, became a blueprint for later civilizations. Their calendar systems and early forms of writing, though not fully deciphered, laid the conceptual groundwork for the more complex systems developed by the Maya and this widespread dissemination of ideas and objects is often referred to as the Olmec Horizon, a period where Olmec-style artifacts are found across a vast geographical area, indicating a shared cultural sphere. This begs the question, was it a trade empire or simply a web of influence? Most scholars today lean away from the idea of a military empire in the traditional sense. There's little evidence the Olmec conquered these distant lands. Instead, it seems to have been a more complex relationship built on mutual benefit. The Olmec needed luxury goods to reinforce the power of their rulers and perform their religious rites. In return, local elites gained access to Olmec prestige goods and the powerful ideology that came with them. It was a network bound, not by force, but by a shared desire for the sacred, the beautiful, and the powerful. The legacy of this network is immense. The connections forged by the Olmec created the first truly international system in Mesoamerica. They linked the highlands with the lowlands, the Gulf Coast with the Pacific. This interaction of diverse peoples and environments spurred innovation and cultural development across the entire region. The civilizations that followed the Zapotec in Oaxaca, the great city of Teotihuacan, and the classic Maya did not emerge in a vacuum. They inherited a world already connected, a world where long-distance trade was possible, and a world that shared a foundational layer of Olmec-inspired symbols and beliefs. So, the next time you see a piece of Olmec jade, remember it's not just a stone, it's the endpoint of an incredible journey. It represents a network of brave traders, a web of political alliances, and the powerful flow of ideas that shaped a continent. The Olmec proved that even in the ancient world, no civilization was an island. Through their relentless pursuit of jade from Guatemala and obsidian from Oaxaca, they connected their world and, in doing so, laid the cultural foundations for all the great Mesoamerican civilizations that would follow in their footsteps. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into ancient history. Let me know in the comments which ancient trade network you find most incredible. Until next time, stay curious. Hello, history lovers, and welcome back to our deep dive into the fascinating world of the Olmec civilization. In our last episode, we marveled at the zenith of San Lorenzo, a city that was the beating heart of Mesoamerica for centuries. But as we can know, all great empires face their twilight. Today, in Chapter 14, we confront a profound mystery: the fall of San Lorenzo. Imagine standing in the year 900 BCE. For over 500 years, San Lorenzo has been the undisputed center of the Olmec world. Its colossal stone heads stare out over a thriving populace. Its grand plazas echo with the sounds of ceremony and trade, and its influence stretches for miles. Yet, within a remarkably short period, this vibrant metropolis begins to fade. The population dwindles, construction halts, and an era of greatness comes to a quiet, enigmatic end. What happened? This is one of Mesoamerican archaeology's most compelling cold cases, and today, we're the detectives. The first major clue leads us to the environment. The Olmec were masters of their landscape, a complex system of rivers and lowlands. Their success depended on the delicate balance of the Coatzacoa Coast River Basin, which provided fertile soil for farming and crucial transportation routes. But what if this life-giving river turned against them? One leading theory suggests that significant environmental changes, possibly a shift in the river's course, threw this balance into chaos. A change in the river's path could have had devastating consequences. It might have inundated fertile farmlands, rendering them unusable, or left previously accessible areas high and dry. This would disrupt agriculture, leading to food shortages and famine. Furthermore, it would have severed vital trade and communication routes, isolating San Lorenzo from its network of subordinate towns and resource-gathering outposts. Without a steady supply of food and goods, the social and political structure that held the city together would begin to fracture under the strain. Imagine the leaders, once seen as powerful intermediaries with the gods, being unable to explain or reverse the failing harvests. Their authority would erode, and people would start to lose faith. This leads us to our second major line of inquiry: internal conflict. A society under immense pressure often turns on itself. The environmental stress we just discussed could have been the spark that ignited a fire of social unrest. As resources became scarce, competition would have intensified. Different factions within the elite, perhaps rival noble families or powerful priesthoods, might have vied for control of the dwindling supplies. This could have escalated into civil strife or even outright warfare. The evidence for this theory is both intriguing and haunting. Many of San Lorenzo's magnificent monuments, including some of the colossal heads, were deliberately mutilated, broken, and then carefully buried. For a long time, archaeologists thought this was the work of outside invaders, but a closer look suggests something else. The defacement seems systematic, almost ritualistic. It wasn't random destruction. It was a targeted act. Some scholars believe this was an act of iconoclasm by San Lorenzo's own people. It could have been a popular uprising, a violent rejection of the ruling class who had failed to provide for them. Smashing the stone portraits of their rulers would have been a powerful symbolic act, a way of destroying their power and legacy. Alternatively, it could have been part of a succession ritual, where a new ruler would ceremoniously deanimate the monuments of his predecessor to establish his own authority. Whatever the specific reason, the intentional destruction of these sacred objects points to a profound internal crisis that shook the city to its core. Of course, these two theories, environmental change and internal conflict, are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are likely two sides of the same coin. A changing river course could lead to famine, which in turn could lead to a popular revolt. A political power struggle could weaken the city's ability to respond to an environmental crisis. It was likely a cascade of interconnected problems, a perfect storm of ecological disaster and social breakdown that proved too much for even the mighty San Lorenzo to withstand. There was no single, dramatic event, no Pompeii-like catastrophe. Instead, it was a slow, painful decline. People began to leave, seeking better lives elsewhere. The workshops fell silent, the plazas emptied, and the once great city slowly returned to the jungle. But the fall of San Lorenzo was not the end of the Olmec. This is a crucial point. It was a transformation. As the heart of the Olmec world stopped beating in San Lorenzo, a new pulse began to grow stronger to the east, at a site we now call Venta. It seems that, as San Lorenzo faded, Many of its people, its artisans, its priests, and its leaders migrated, carrying their knowledge, traditions, and culture with them. The Olmec spirit was not extinguished, it simply moved. This shift represents a remarkable moment of resilience. Venta would rise to become the new capital, building on the foundations laid by San Lorenzo and taking Olmec culture to even greater heights. The ideas, the art forms, the religious beliefs, they all continued, evolving and adapting in their new home. So, the fall of San Lorenzo is less about an ending and more about the closing of one brilliant chapter and the dramatic opening of another. It's a powerful reminder that cultures are not static. They are living, breathing entities that change and move in response to the world around them. The story of San Lorenzo's decline is a complex puzzle with missing pieces, a testament to the challenges of piecing together the distant past. Was it the river, a rebellion, or a combination of both? We may never know for certain, but the search for answers continues to drive archaeologists and historians. What we do know is that around 900 BCE, one of the first great cities of the Americas faded, not with a bang, but with a whisper, leaving behind its giant stone guardians to keep its secrets. Thank you so much for joining me on this investigation into the fall of San Lorenzo. What do you think happened? Let me know your theories in the comments below. In our next chapter, we will travel to the new heart of the Olmec world, the magnificent center of Venta. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through the mists of time. Today, we arrive at our final destination in the Olmec heartland. Tres Zapotes. This isn't just another ancient city. It's the setting for the final, flickering glow of a civilization that shaped Mesoamerica. So, let's step into the twilight of the Olmecs and explore their last great bastion. Imagine a place where the past and future collide. That was Tres Zapotes, flourishing from around 400 BC, long after the decline of Venta. This center became the torchbearer of Olmec traditions. Here, the echoes of the jaguar shamans and the colossal heads still resonated, but they were mingling with new voices, new ideas, and the dawn of new cultures. Tres Zapotes wasn't just a shadow of former glory. It was a vibrant, evolving community. Archaeologists have uncovered over 160 mounds, platforms, and plazas here, spread across a vast area. This tells us it was a significant urban center, a place of power and ceremony. The people of Tres Zapotes continued to carve stone, but with their own distinct style. They were innovators, not just imitators. Perhaps the most famous artifact from Tres Zapotes is steamy. This stone monument is a game-changer in our understanding of Mesoamerican history. Why? Because on one side, it bears a date, 32 BC, written in the long count calendar system. For a long time, this was the oldest known date in this calendar, a system later perfected by the Maya. This discovery suggests that the Olmecs, or their immediate successors at Tres Zapotes, were pioneers in sophisticated timekeeping and writing. This stela is a bridge between civilizations. It carries the artistic DNA of the Olmecs, but its inscription points toward the complex intellectual world of later cultures, like the Olmec and the Maya. It's a testament to the enduring legacy of the Olmecs, showing how their innovations didn't just disappear but were adopted, adapted, and built upon by those who came after. While the colossal heads at Tres Zapotes are stylistically different from their earlier counterparts, a bit more naturalistic, some say they prove that this core symbol of Olmec power persisted for centuries. These stoic faces, carved from massive volcanic boulders, were still being created, still watching over their people. They represent a deep-rooted tradition, a link to the ancestral kings and the sacred mountains, even as the world around them was changing. But Tres Zapotes also tells a story of transition. We see new pottery styles and new artistic motifs emerging, hinting at growing interaction with other groups in the region. The rigid control of the earlier Olmec centers seems to have loosened, giving way to a more complex network of towns and influences. The Olmec world was no longer a singular, monolithic entity. It was becoming a mosaic of interconnected cultures. So what happened to Tres Zapotes? Why did this final glow fade? Unlike the dramatic collapses of San Lorenzo and Venta, the end here seems to have been more gradual. The city continued to be occupied well into the first few centuries, but its Olmecness slowly dissolved into the rising tide of new cultural identities, what archaeologists often call the Olmec culture. There was no sudden cataclysm, no single event to point to. Instead, it was a gentle erosion, the way a mighty river slowly changes its course over generations. The Olmec identity didn't vanish overnight. It transformed. It flowed into the foundations of the great civilizations that would follow, nourishing the roots of the Maya, the Teotihuacanos, and the As we stand here, metaphorically, amidst the mounds of Tres, we're witnessing the end of a chapter, not the end of the book. The Olmecs taught a continent how to build cities, how to worship gods, how to track time, and how to express power through art. Their civilization was a fertile ground from which so much of what we find fascinating about ancient Mesoamerica would grow. Reflecting on this journey, from the first colossal head at San Lorenzo to the last dated stela at Tres Zapotes, we see the arc of a truly foundational civilization. T. Mother culture, and their influence is like a ghost in the machine of Mesoamerican history, yet ever present. They laid the groundwork, and their legacy is not just in stone, but in the very fabric of the cultures that inherited their world. The greatness of the Olmecs didn't truly end. It simply changed form, becoming a timeless part of a much larger story. Thank you for joining me on this incredible exploration of the Olmec civilization. It's been an honor to walk through these ancient cities with you. If you've enjoyed this series and want to continue exploring the mysteries of the past, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Until then, stay curious. Have you ever wondered how ancient civilizations kept track of time without a modern calendar, or how they recorded their history before the alphabets we know today? Journey with us back to a time of profound innovation in the Americas, a time when the very first seeds of writing and timekeeping were sown. We're about to uncover a story hidden in stone and bone, a story that sets the stage for one of the most brilliant civilizations the world has ever known, the Maya. This isn't a tale of grand empires at their peak, but rather one of quiet beginnings, of intellectual sparks that would later ignite a cultural firestorm. We're venturing into the pre-classic period of Mesoamerica, a world brimming with burgeoning societies, each contributing a piece to a complex puzzle. Our focus is on a revolutionary idea, the ability to capture thought, story, and the rhythm of the cosmos in physical form. Imagine a world governed by the sun, the moon, and the cycles of agriculture. For the early peoples of Mesoamerica, understanding these cycles wasn't just an academic pursuit. It was a matter of survival. When should you plant your maize? When will the rains come? When should you perform the rituals to appease the gods? Answering these questions required a system, a way to mark the passage of days and predict celestial events. This necessity became the mother of invention, giving rise to some of the earliest calendar systems in the Americas. These weren't calendars like the ones on our phones. They were intricate systems, often interwoven with religious beliefs and cosmology. One of the most significant developments was the 260-day sacred calendar, known as the asterisk, Tuscan asterisk, to the later Maya. Tis Calinda, likely based on the human gestation period or astronomical observations, was a ritual cycle that dictated the timing of ceremonies and divined the fates of individuals. Alongside it, a 365-day solar calendar, the asterisk, hobasterisk, tracked the agricultural year. The true genius was combining these two calendars into a 52-year cycle, creating a rich and detailed framework for organizing both ritual and daily life. But how did they record this complex information? This is where the story of writing begins. It didn't start with fully formed sentences or elaborate texts. It started with symbols, with protoglyphs. Think of them as the ancestors of writing. A simple circle might represent the sun or a day. A stylized jaguar head could signify power or a specific ruler. These weren't just pretty pictures, they were units of meaning, a shared visual language that could convey complex ideas. Archaeological sites like San Jose Mogote in Oaxaca, Mexico, have yielded some of the earliest evidence. Here, around 600 BCE, we find a carved stone depicting a captive figure with a symbol between his legs. This isn't just a random doodle. It's one of the first known examples of a calendrical name in Mesoamerica, likely one earthquake. This single carving tells a story of conflict of a named individual. And crucially, it uses a symbol tied to the sacred calendar. It's a monumental leap in human communication. For the first time, a specific event tied to a specific person on a specific day was made permanent. These early innovations weren't isolated. Ideas traveled along ancient trade routes, shared and adapted by different cultures. The Olmec civilization, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, played a pivotal role while we're still deciphering their symbolic system. It's clear they were using sophisticated iconography to represent rulers, deities, and cosmological concepts. This cultural exchange created a fertile ground for the development of more complex writing systems. From these Olmec and Zapotic roots, we see the emergence of what is known as Ismaean or a pre-Olmec script. Found on monuments like the La Mojara Stela 1, this script is more advanced, featuring columns of glyphs that appear to represent a true language. The stela, dating to the 2nd century CE, contains one of the longest early texts from Mesoamerica, complete with dates from the long count calendar. That incredibly precise system the Maya would later perfect, and this brings us to the quiet connection, the intellectual inheritance passed on to the Maya. The Maya didn't invent writing or the calendar out of thin air. They were the brilliant inheritors of a long tradition of intellectual and scientific inquiry. They took these foundational concepts, the 260-day and 365-day calendars, the use of glyphs to record names and events, and the concept of the long count and elevated them to an art form. The Maya developed the most sophisticated and fully developed writing system in the pre-Columbian Americas. It was a logosyllabic system, meaning some glyphs represented whole words, while others represented phonetic syllables. This allowed them to write anything they could say, from detailed dynastic histories of their kings and queens to complex mythological narratives and astronomical predictions of stunning accuracy. When we look at the magnificent stele of Tikal, or the painted codices that survived the Spanish conquest, we are seeing the culmination of a 1,000-year journey. The Dotan bar system for numbers, the intricate glyphs for the days and months, the chronicles of royal births, accessions, and battles. All of these have their roots in those early protoglyphs and calendar symbols carved by their predecessors. The birth of writing was not a single event, but a gradual dawning of consciousness, a slow realization that the ephemeral spoken word could be given permanence. It was a way to conquer time, to speak across generations. The calendar was humanity's first great attempt to find order in the cosmos, to synchronize human life with the rhythms of the universe. For the early peoples of Mesoamerica, these two inventions were inseparable. The calendar provided the structure, the framework of time. Writing provided the narrative, the story of what happened within that time. Together, they allowed societies to build a collective memory, a shared history. They could track their lineage, legitimize their rulers, and record their sacred knowledge. This ability to store and transmit complex information was a key ingredient that allowed societies to grow in size and complexity, paving the way for the great city-states of the classic Maya period. So the next time you marvel at the complexity of Maya hieroglyphs, or their incredibly accurate calendar, remember the quiet beginnings. Remember the unnamed innovators in Oaxaca, the Olmec sculptors, and the Olmec scribes. They were the pioneers who first dared to carve time into stone and give a voice to history. Their work was a silent promise, a baton passed through the centuries, carried to its magnificent fulfillment by the Maya. It is a powerful testament to the continuity of human ingenuity and our endless quest to understand our place in the cosmos. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the origins of Mesoamerican writing and timekeeping. It is a story that proves the most powerful revolutions often start with a single mark on a stone. If you found this journey as fascinating as we did, please hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the past, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We love hearing from you, so please drop your thoughts and questions in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through the annals of art and history. Today, in Chapter 17, we delve into the heart of an ancient civilization. exploring the profound spiritual world of the Olmec through their most cherished material. Jade. Imagine the dense, humid jungles of Mesoamerica over 3,000 years ago. Here, the Olmec civilization flourished, laying the groundwork for many cultures that would follow. And at the center of their cosmic vision was this remarkable green stone. For the Olmec, jade was far more than a beautiful mineral. It was the embodiment of life, fertility, and the sacred essence of the natural world. Its color mirrored the life-giving maize and the shimmering waters of sacred rivers. Holding a piece of Olmec jade is like holding a drop of condensed life force. Let's begin with the iconic Olmec jade masks. These are not portraits in the way we might think of them today. They are gateways. Look closely at the features. The downturned mouth, often described as the word jaguar motif. The almond-shaped eyes. The slightly flared nostrils. These aren't meant to represent a specific individual, but an idealized, spiritual state. The combination of human and jaguar features speaks to a central belief in Olmec cosmology: the power of transformation. The jaguar was the most powerful predator in their world, a ruler of the earthly and spiritual realms. By merging its features with human ones, the Olmec were expressing the ability of shamans and rulers to cross the veil, to journey into the spirit world and return with knowledge and power. These masks might have been worn during sacred rituals, allowing the wearer to embody a divine being, or perhaps they were placed on the faces of deceased rulers to guide their souls on the ultimate journey of transformation rebirth. The craftsmanship is simply breathtaking. Remember, the Olmec had no metal tools. They worked this incredibly hard stone using a painstaking process of sawing, grinding, and drilling with other stones, sand, and water. Each groove, each polished surface, represents countless hours of dedicated labor. This process wasn't just manufacturing, it was a sacred act, infusing the object with spiritual energy and devotion. The smoothness of the finished jade feels cool and alive to the touch, a testament to the artisan's profound connection to the material. Now, let's turn our attention to the figurines, particularly the famous Les Limas Monument one. This incredible sculpture, carved from a single piece of jadeite, depicts a figure holding what appears to be a jaguar baby. It's a powerful and enigmatic image. Is it a priest presenting an offering to the gods? A ruler displaying his connection to the divine lineage? Or does it represent the moment of spiritual birth, the emergence of a shaman's power? Many scholars believe this figure represents the Olmec axis. Mundi, the cosmic world tree, connecting the underworld, the earth, and the heavens. The figure sits at the center of this cosmos, a conduit between worlds. The four glyphs incised on his shoulders and knees are thought to represent the four cardinal directions, reinforcing his role as a central point in the universe. This single piece of art encapsulates an entire worldview, a complex understanding of space, time, and spirituality. Another fascinating group of objects are the jade celts, or votive axes. These were often carved with intricate designs and then intentionally buried in large, ceremonial caches. One of the most famous, offering from Venta, consisted of 16 figurines and 6 jade celts, arranged in what looks like a council or a procession. The celts stood behind them like stelae, or sacred stones. What does this tell us? It suggests that these objects were not just for display. Their burial was the ultimate act of dedication. They were offerings meant for the earth, for the gods of the underworld, perhaps to ensure agricultural fertility or to commemorate a significant cosmic event. By burying this immense wealth of jade, the Olmec were planting spiritual energy back into the earth, completing a sacred cycle of life, death, and regeneration. The art's final purpose was to be removed from human eyes and given back to the divine. This concept of transformation is woven through every piece. You see it in the word jaguar, the human becoming animal. You see it in the symbolism of maize, the seed transforming into a life-sustaining plant. And you see it in the purpose of the art itself, a tool for shamans to transform their state of consciousness and for the dead to be reborn into the spirit world. Jade was the catalyst, the physical medium for these profound metaphysical journeys. As we look at these serene, powerful faces and figures, We are looking across millennia at a people deeply connected to the cycles of nature and the mysteries of existence. They saw the world not as static, but as a constant flow of energy, a dance of transformation. Their jade art is not just a collection of artifacts. It is a library of spiritual beliefs carved in stone, a calm and enduring testament to the human search for meaning and our connection to the cosmos. It reminds us that art has always been a way for us to touch the eternal, to transform ourselves, and to be reborn. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Olmec jade. If you found this journey as fascinating as I do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the art that shaped our world. See you next time. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to stumble upon a lost civilization? To be the first person in centuries to lay eyes on the remnants of a forgotten empire? Today, we re-dive into one of the most exciting stories in archaeology, the rediscovery of the Olmec civilization. A tale of intrepid explorers, dense jungles, and colossal stone heads emerging from the earth. For thousands of years, the legacy of the Olmecs lay dormant, swallowed by the tropical lowlands of south-central Mexico. Their cities were reclaimed by vines, their pyramids resembled natural hills, and their most iconic creations, the colossal heads, were buried, waiting. The local people knew of these strange, giant stones, sometimes calling them cabeza de bruja, or witch's head. But to the wider world, the Olmecs were completely unknown. They were a ghost in the annals of history. That all began to change in the 19th century. The first official report came in 1862. A farm worker clearing land near the village of Tres Zapotes in Veracruz stumbled upon something incredible. Partially buried in the soil was a massive stone carving. He thought he had found a giant, inverted iron cauldron. His employer, Jose Maria Melgar y Serrano, a local intellectual and adventurer, came to investigate. After extensive digging, they unearthed not a cauldron, but a face. A colossal stone head with powerful, distinct features unlike anything seen before. Melgar y Serrano was astounded. He published a brief notice about his discovery in 1869, noting the Ethiopian features of the face and speculating about a long-lost connection between Africa and the Americas. While his racial theories were a product of his time and have since been dismissed, his discovery was the first crack in the wall of silence surrounding the Olmecs. It was the first clue that a great, unknown civilization had once thrived in this very spot. But this groundbreaking find didn't immediately spark an archaeological gold rush. The jungle is a formidable guardian. The remoteness of the region, the thick vegetation, and the political instability of the era meant that for decades, the Tres Zapotes had remained an isolated curiosity. Other similar stones were known locally, but they were just that, local legends, not pieces of a grand historical puzzle. It would take the dawn of a new century and a new breed of archaeologists to begin connecting the dots. Enter the 20th century, and the pioneers of Mesoamerican archaeology. Figures like Franz Blom and Oliver Lafarge mounted an expedition for Tulane University in 1925. They journeyed through the treacherous jungle, documenting Mayan ruins. On their travels, they heard tales of giant stone heads and were led to Venta, another site deep in the swamps of Tabasco. There, they not only found another colossal head, but also an entire ceremonial complex with a massive earthen pyramid, intricate mosaic pavements, and exquisite jade offerings. They mistakenly attributed these finds to the Maya, but they documented them meticulously. They were holding pieces of the Olmec puzzle, even if they didn't know it yet. The person who would finally give the Olmecs their name and their rightful place in history was Matthew Stirling, an archaeologist with the Smithsonian Institution. Stirling was fascinated by the early reports of the colossal heads. Starting in the late 1930s, he led a series of expeditions, funded by the National Geographic Society, to Tres Zapotes, Venta, and a new site, San Lorenzo. Imagine Stirling and his team hacking their way through the jungle with machetes, battling mosquitoes, heat, and humidity. At Tres Zapotes, they relocated the original head and unearthed another, along with a crucial artifact known as stela. See, this stone monument had a date carved on it, using the Mesoamerican long count calendar. The date, equivalent to 32 BCE, was centuries older than any known Maya inscription at the time. This was a bombshell. It suggested that the civilization at Tres Zapotes predated the classic Maya, who had long been considered the mother culture of Mesoamerica. Sterling's work at Venta was even more spectacular. He and his team unearthed 4 more colossal heads, bringing the known total to 5 from that site alone. They also excavated stunningly sophisticated artifacts, intricate jade, figurines, ceremonial axes, and the famous offering for a collection of small jade figures arranged in what looks like a procession. The artistry was unique, powerful, and utterly distinct from Maya or Aztec styles. It was at a conference in 1942 that the term Olmec was formally proposed to describe this newly identified culture. The name comes from the Nahuatl language of the Aztecs, Olmecatl, which means rubber people, a name the Aztecs used for the people who lived in this region centuries later. It was a borrowed name, as we still don't know what the Olmecs called themselves, but it stuck. For the first time, these scattered finds, the colossal heads, the jade artifacts, the early calendar dates were unified under one cultural identity. The work didn't stop with Sterling. In the 1960s, archaeologist Michael Coe led groundbreaking excavations at San Lorenzo. Using new techniques, his team uncovered evidence of an even earlier Olmec occupation than at Venta. They found that San Lorenzo was a massive, artificially modified plateau, a feat of engineering that would have required a huge, coordinated labor force. And they found more heads. They unearthed several more colossal heads, bringing the total count from San Lorenzo to 10. Coe's work established San Lorenzo as the earliest great Olmec center, flourishing from around 1200 to 900 BCE. He also uncovered a sophisticated system of stone drains and aqueducts, revealing the Olmecs' mastery over their watery environment. The evidence was overwhelming. This was not some primitive tribe, but a complex, hierarchical society with powerful rulers, skilled artisans, and brilliant engineers. Each discovery has built upon the last, slowly revealing the Olmec world. Modern technologies like LiDAR, which can map the terrain beneath the dense jungle canopy, are now revealing new structures and settlement patterns that were previously invisible. We now know the Olmecs developed the first major cities in Mesoamerica, likely invented the ball game, played with a rubber ball, and laid the foundations for the writing, calendar systems, and religious beliefs that would be adopted and adapted by all subsequent civilizations, including the Maya and the Aztecs. From a single head found by a farm worker to a civilization now recognized as the mother culture of Mesoamerica, the rediscovery of the Olmecs is a testament to human curiosity and perseverance. It's a reminder that our understanding of the past is constantly evolving, that lost worlds are still out there, waiting to be found. Not in some fantasy film, but buried right beneath our feet, under the jungle soil. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's a fascinating story, isn't it? If you enjoyed this exploration of the Olmec rediscovery, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the mysteries of ancient history. We've got so much more to explore together. See you in the next video. Have you ever wondered where the incredible achievements of the Maya and the Aztecs came from? It's a question that has fascinated historians for centuries. While we often marvel at their grand pyramids and complex calendars, the roots of these great civilizations stretch back even further, to a mysterious and powerful people known as the Olmecs. They are the true architects of Mesoamerican culture. And today, we're diving deep into their incredible legacy. Welcome to Chapter 19, The Legacy of the Olmecs. The Olmecs emerged around 1600 BCE in the tropical lowlands of south-central Mexico, in what are now the states of Veracruz and Tabasco. This region, often called the Olmec heartland, was a land of rivers, rainforests, and fertile soil, the perfect cradle for a civilization to flourish. And flourish they did. The Olmecs weren't just another ancient culture, Te Werit, the mother culture of Mesoamerica, laying down the fundamental blueprint that nearly every subsequent civilization would follow. From the way they built their cities to the gods they worshipped, the Olmec footprint is everywhere. Let's start with their cities. The Olmecs were the first in Mesoamerica to build monumental ceremonial centers. Sites like San Lorenzo, Venta, and Tres Zapotes weren't just places where people lived, they were carefully planned sacred landscapes. Imagine a city designed not just for practical living, but as a reflection of the cosmos. At Venta, For instance, the entire site is aligned 8 degrees west of true north. Why? Archaeologists believe this specific alignment was deliberate, possibly pointing to a significant star or constellation. This concept of a cosmologically aligned city became a hallmark of Mesoamerican urban planning. When you look at Teotihuacan, or the Mayan city of Tikal, you're re-seeing an echo of an Olmec idea, the belief that a city should be a mirror of the heavens, a sacred space connecting humanity with the divine. The centerpiece of these cities was often a massive earthen mound or pyramid. The Great Pyramid at Venta is one of the earliest known pyramids in Mesoamerica. It wasn't a stepped pyramid like those of the later Maya or Aztecs, but a huge, conical mound of earth over 100 feet tall. It dominated the landscape, a man-made mountain dedicated to the gods. This was a revolutionary concept, mobilizing immense labor to construct a sacred monument that served as the spiritual heart of the community. This practice of building temple pyramids became the cornerstone of Mesoamerican religious architecture for the next 2,000 years. The Olmecs started it all. Now, let's talk about art. When you think of Olmec art, one thing probably comes to mind: the colossal heads. These giant stone sculptures, some weighing over 40 tons, are absolute masterpieces. Carved from volcanic basalt, sourced from mountains over 100 miles away, they depict mature men with fleshy cheeks, flat noses, and powerful, slightly crossed eyes. Each face is unique, with its own distinct headdress, leading experts to believe they are portraits of individual Olmec rulers. Imagine the sheer effort and organization required to quarry, transport, and carve these massive stones without metal tools or wheeled vehicles. It's a testament to the power and authority these rulers held. But these heads are more than just portraits. They are statements of power and divine kingship. The Olmecs were among the first to establish the institution of the king, or Astris Kayula, Astris, the divine lord. The ruler was not just a political leader. He was a sacred intermediary between the human world and the supernatural realm. The colossal heads immortalized this status, presenting the ruler as a figure of immense strength and permanence. This model of divine kingship, where rulers claimed a special connection to the gods and legitimized their power through ritual and monumental art, was adopted by virtually every later Mesoamerican society, from the Zapotes to the Maya and beyond. The Maya stele, depicting their kings, are a direct artistic and political descendant of the Olmec, colossal heads. Olmec art wasn't limited to giant heads, though. They were master carvers of jade, a stone they considered more precious than gold. Their jade work, from delicate figurines to ceremonial axes, known as celts, is breathtaking. They often depicted figures that were part human, part animal. Most famously, the word jaguar. This motif, showing a creature with a snarling, downturned mouth, almond-shaped eyes, and a cleft head, is believed to represent a powerful supernatural being or a shaman in the process of transformation. The jaguar was the apex predator of the Mesoamerican world, a symbol of power, ferocity, and the night. By associating their rulers and deities with the jaguar, the Olmecs created a potent religious iconography that permeated Mesoamerican belief systems for centuries. The Aztec god Tezcatlipoca, often depicted with jaguar features, can trace his lineage back to these ancient Olmec concepts. This brings us to religion. The Olmecs developed a complex pantheon and a set of ritual practices that would define Mesoamerican spirituality. They practiced bloodletting and sacrifice, believing it was necessary to nourish the gods and maintain cosmic balance. Jade and serpentine artifacts often depict figures piercing themselves with stingray spines, a ritual later seen in vivid detail in Maya art. The Olmecs also originated the Mesoamerican ball game. While the exact rules of the Olmec game are unknown, rubber balls have been found at Olmec sites, and some scholars believe certain stone sculptures depict ball. This ritual sport, played in specially built ball courts, was more than just a game. It was a deeply religious event, sometimes ending in sacrifice, that reenacted cosmic myths. The ball game, in all its various forms, became a central feature of Mesoamerican life for millennia. Perhaps the most intellectually profound legacy of the Olmecs is their development of writing and calendar systems. At the site of Cascael, a stone block was discovered with 62 incised symbols, or glyphs, dated to around 900 BCE. The Casci block is currently the oldest known example of writing in the Western Hemisphere, while it has yet to be deciphered. Its existence proves that the Olmecs were the first Mesoamericans to create a system for recording language. Later, cultures like the Zapotecs and Maya would develop their own complex hieroglyphic scripts. But the idea itself, the very concept of writing, began with the Olmecs. Furthermore, monuments like Stela C from Tres Zapotes contain one of the earliest dates in the Mesoamerican long count calendar, a sophisticated system for tracking time over vast periods. The date on the stela corresponds to 31 BC, but the calendar system itself is much older and is widely believed to be an Olmec invention. This calendar, which combined a 260-day sacred cycle with a 365-day solar year, was the foundation of Mesoamerican timekeeping, cosmology, and prophecy. The Maya, famous for their calendrical precision, were building on an Olmec foundation. So, when we look at the great civilizations of Mesoamerica, we must remember who came before. The Olmecs were the innovators, the trailblazers. They gave Mesoamerica its first cities, aligned with the cosmos. They established the model of divine kingship, immortalized in stone. They created a powerful artistic and religious iconography centered on the jaguar and the supernatural. They invented writing, the ball game, and the complex calendar that would govern life for thousands of years. They weren't just a mother culture. They were the cultural DNA of ancient Mexico and Central America, the Maya pyramids, the Aztec gods, the very idea of a sacred city-all. These magnificent achievements have their roots in the fertile soil of the Olmec heartland. Their civilization may have vanished, but their legacy is eternal, carved into stone and woven into the very fabric of Mesoamerican history. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this exploration of the Olmecs as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into ancient history. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time. The rain falls, a soft, persistent rhythm against the leaves. A sound as ancient as the stones themselves. Here, at the end of our journey, we find ourselves standing before them once more. The faces, carved from the very heart of the mountain, they have endured the passing of centuries, the rise and fall of empires unseen by the outside world. They are the silent custodians of a forgotten history, their features weathered by 1,000 monsoons, their eyes staring out into the emerald expanse of the jungle. Who were the hands that shaped them? What were the minds that conceived of such enduring monuments? We've walked the crumbling plazas, traced the faded hieroglyphs on temple walls, and listened to the whispers of the wind through abandoned corridors. We've pieced together a story of a people deeply connected to their world, a civilization that saw the divine in the jaguar's prow, the serpent's coil, and the eagle's flight. They built their world in alignment with the stars, their calendar a complex dance of celestial observation and earthly seasons. Look closer at this face. See the faint lines etched around the eyes, the subtle curve of the lips. Is it a king, a priest, or a god? Or perhaps it is none of these. Perhaps it is a representation of the people themselves, a collective portrait of a society that thrived in this isolated paradise. The artists who carved this stone did not seek to capture a fleeting expression, but an eternal one. A look of calm, of knowing, of a deep and abiding peace. They weren't just carving rock. They were embedding their very soul, their philosophy, into the landscape. We talk of lost civilizations as if they simply vanished, swallowed whole by time and nature. But standing here, it doesn't feel like a story of loss. It feels like a story of transformation. The jungle, which they once tamed and shaped, has now reclaimed its own. Vines embrace the sculpted stone like a long-lost child. Moss paints the cheeks in shades of vibrant green, a living patina that adds to their mystique. The city didn't die. It simply went to sleep, cradled by the very nature it once worshipped. The people who lived here understood cycles, the cycle of the sun and moon, the cycle of rain and drought, the cycle of life and death. For them, the end of one thing was always the beginning of another. So, as their great city slowly dissolved back into the earth, did they see it as a failure, or did they see it as the natural order, a return to the source from which all life springs? Their monuments suggest the latter. These faces are not mournful. They are serene. They possess a patience that we, in our frantic modern world, can barely comprehend. Imagine the sounds that once filled this place, not just the gentle rain, but the murmur of a bustling market, the chants of priests from the high pyramid, the laughter of children playing in the courtyards. The air would have been thick with the smell of copal incense, of cooking fires, of the rich, damp earth. All of that is gone now, replaced by the symphony of the jungle, the call of the howler monkey, the drone of insects, the rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. The city's voice has changed, but it has not been silenced. It speaks a different language now, a language of roots and stone, of shadow and light. We came here seeking answers, hoping to unravel the mystery of a people who disappeared. But the longer I stand here, the more I realize that the mystery is the point. These faces weren't meant to give us all the answers. They were meant to make us ask the questions. They challenge our perception of time, our definition of permanence. What does it mean to build something that lasts? In our world, we build with steel and glass, structures designed to defy nature. Here, they built with stone, in harmony with nature, creating something that could gracefully surrender to it. Their legacy is not in the gold they might have possessed or the power they might have wielded. Their legacy is this profound silence. It's in the feeling you get when you stand in the shadow of these monoliths, a sense of being infinitesimally small, yet connected to something immeasurably vast and ancient. It's a lesson in humility, a reminder that we are all just temporary guests on this planet, and that the grandest structures we can build are nothing compared to the slow, relentless power of time and nature. The light is fading now. The shadows lengthen, deepening the hollows of their eyes, sharpening the line of their jaws. Soon, the jungle will be plunged into darkness, and these faces will keep their vigil under a blanket of stars, the same stars their astronomers once mapped with such precision. They have seen it all before. They have watched generations come and go. They have felt the sun and the rain, the heat and the cold. They are a part of this landscape, as much as the trees, the rivers, and the mountains. Our own world moves at a dizzying pace. We are obsessed with the now, the next, the new. We rarely have a moment to simply be still, to listen, to reflect. But here, time slows down. It stretches. It breathes. An hour can feel like a minute, and a minute can feel like an eternity. These stones teach us the value of stillness. They invite us to stop, to look, and to feel the immense weight of history that surrounds us. They ask us to consider our own place in the long, unfolding story of humanity. What will we leave behind? What silent witnesses will tell our story when we are gone? As we prepare to leave this sacred place, to return to our own world of noise and hurry, we carry a piece of this silence with us. It's a memory, a feeling, a new perspective. The story of this city is not just a chapter in a history book. It is a living poem written in stone and vine, a quiet meditation on existence itself. We may never know the names of the people who lived here, but we have seen their faces. We have felt their presence. And in a way, we have communed with their spirits across the vast ocean of time. The rain is softening now, becoming a gentle mist that clings to the air. The world grows quiet, holding its breath. Their faces still watch the jungle, silent witnesses of a world long asleep. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. If you were moved by this story, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the forgotten corners of our world. Your support allows us to continue bringing these stories to light. Until next time, stay curious,